In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcasted over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel and uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. With that, the meeting is open. Just for the matter of record, for the minute taker, we have Anita Shivers here, Chris Sullivan
Here.
Karen Menard here, Colleen Shapiro
Here.
Amanda Lockwood, and we also have in presence with us as our facility directors, Chris Ruth. All right, so the floor is yours.
So 10 to 15 minutes presentation?
So, presentation and then question answer.
Okay.
We have close to like another 25 minutes
Okay.
to it.
Yeah, and feel free to interrupt us, to be honest with you. If there's something up here you want clarification. So, and first and foremost, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity. So what we did, we answered, there's a couple questions in there. We only have like a dozen slides, so it's pretty straightforward. So again, if you have any questions, just, ask us. So our, whoops. There we go, sorry. There we go. So our team, as you can see in the proposal, I'm Dale Caldwell, I'll be the principal in charge. I've been with Skanska 23 years, civil engineer background. Tom?
And I'm Tom Doolittle. I will be the project manager on this project. I've been with Skanska for 5.5 years, and I am a landscape architect by training. So I'm very familiar with field and park construction.
The other team member is Jerry Albert. He's actually a Lunenburg resident. We have 3 residents here in Lunenburg. So Jerry Albert, he's in Florida right now, so unfortunately can't be here. We're very sure about site representation on site. So Jerry's role, which could be a part-time role or full-time, is really to make sure that what you're buying, what's being installed is we'll talk more about that as we go through this, but it's basically your eyes and ears in the field. We also have Catherine as an assistant to Tom. So her role again is just helping Tom behind the scenes. And then finally we have Kyla, who is an estimator. We find a lot of these projects. Skanska has in-house capabilities for estimating, but Kyla, it's a woman-owned business for estimating and scheduling. So we basically team up with her a lot just to bring in some WE participation. So with that being said, we'll get right into your project. Again, just kind of reiterating our experience. You can see Minuteman Regional Vocational. We built football fields, baseball, the concession building there. We also have Bremer May. That was actually a sod field, so basically rolled out the grass. Minuteman was synthetic turf, so we have sod there. Winthrop is turf. We also have Douglas Gates, which is loam and seed. You can see that's the boardwalk right there that goes through a pond. So that goes over to parking on the other side where there's more park area there. Bosque Sport, that's out in Pittsfield, Mass. Again, that's a pickleball court that we're physically doing now as we speak. And Mount Greylock, this is basically just a large field. We're currently doing this, another loam and seed type of job. So you can see we do everything in between synthetic, loam and seed, and turf in between.
And then the City Hall Plaza project, which I am currently working on phase 2 of, that's significant because that has a very large playground component to it for children of all abilities and all sizes and all ages, including me. And then I also worked on the Polar Park AAA Ballpark Stadium in Worcester, which has obviously a very high-end baseball field as part of that project. So we're very familiar with the field construction techniques at a number of different levels, as you can see from all these different projects. So just to recap very basically what we understand of the project at this point, you identified an $8.5 million budget, which is a great budget for a project of this size. You've completed a schematic design phase, which is actually a pretty thorough document in terms of the layout of the facilities and some of the detail that they've gotten into, so that's a good basis to be working from. One of our first tasks once we get on board will be to really hammer down on the schedule and the budget for the project. So we get real clear parameters about what we think we're working with in terms of how well the concept of the project aligns with the budget that's been identified and the schedule on how we're going to get this project delivered for you in a cost-effective manner. We understand stakeholder engagement is going to be an important aspect of the project. There are immediate direct abutters to the site who will have concerns about traffic and noise and all those usual kinds of concerns. Plus the bigger community. This is obviously a significant resource for the entire town and probably beyond. So we want to make sure that people are informed about how the project is progressing and making sure that the facilities that are providing are meeting the needs and addressing any concerns that may occur. We understand that regular project reporting is going to be a significant piece of the work, that you expect regular updates from the owner's project manager to advise on how we're doing in terms of advancing the project and staying within budget parameters and so on. Estimating is obviously important. I'll talk about constructability and design review, the procurement method for the project, and our quality control and cost management on the following slides. One thing that was not specifically identified in the RFP or the RFQ was designer selection. So we don't understand as we stay here today whether we're going to re-procure the design services for continuing forward, or if you're continuing with your existing design team. Fine with us either way. We're more than happy to help with the designer selection. We have a lot of experience with doing that, obviously, and we have some sort of insights from the scope of the project, of things that should be identified as criteria for the selection of a designer. Or if you're going to continue working with the same team, that's fine. We can work with them too, and maybe bolster some of the areas of the project so that we get good coverage and good design knowledge behind the total package. In terms of design review, at least for the ball field construction, this is going to be all about the soils. It's about getting the right kinds of soils in the right layers, making sure that they're very clearly specified so that the contractor knows what they're buying and how to procure and install those materials. So we'll be looking very carefully at those specifications and at the methodologies that are used to build the actual fields, so that we know that, number one, they meet the NFHS standards, so that they're good competition quality fields, and that they perform the way you expect them to with minimal maintenance. Of course, there's going to be there's no option for a no maintenance baseball field or softball field, but by making sure we get the right materials, we can minimize or manage that maintenance process as best as possible. Irrigation will also be an important aspect of that. It's not clear from your documents if the fields are going to be irrigated, but irrigation is going to be important if we do sod fields. And the decision about sod versus loam and seed for the actual seeding of the fields isn't important. There's a lot of benefits to doing it with sod, but there's also a lot of cost impacts for doing that. So we need to carefully look at those two options and make sure we're making the right decision for the town. The boardwalk design is also important. It's a very complicated boardwalk that's being proposed. It has a lot of wetland impacts to it, so the technologies of how we build that to minimize impacts and so that it'll be a stable and safe structure for a long period of time. We'll have to look at that very carefully as it goes through design to make sure we're getting, again, the product that the town wants.
And just as a side note with the loam and seed, if you have loam and seed, it may be a whole year we can't use the fields versus sod.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of value engineering that we
Yeah,
can
it's
help
time.
you through.
You're buying time with going to a sod installation. We can talk about that more too. The procurement strategy, obviously, because of the fact that there is a building included, even if it's just a very small one, we have to do a Chapter 149 procurement rather than a Chapter 30, which makes the procurement a little bit more complicated. But we're well-versed and practiced in doing those kinds of procurements. The keys to them are really getting out to the market and talking with the general contractors and the subcontractors early, so that we get the right people submitting qualifications and getting them qualified so that they can bid on the project. So that will be a key element that we want to get into very shortly after we come on board and start making that outreach and identifying who are the right contractors to be building this project.
And just again, as another side note, with the building at Miller Field in Winthrop, we put the slab down for the concession and restrooms, and we had a local vocational school come in. So we prepped it all. So we did a lot of upfront, say, hey, about 8 months, 10 months down the road, it's ready for you. So it was a win-win, because the school built it with their students, so.
And then again, quality control, once we get into the field and start building, it will be key, especially, as I said before, with the soils. We need to make sure that the specifications are clear, that the contractors are getting the materials that were specified, that we test those carefully to make sure that they will perform once they're installed, and then carefully oversee and manage that installation process. Because building these fields requires, it's a sandwich of different soils that go in to really, so that it's effectively growing the grass as you need it, but then draining well too, so that there's not problems with the soil, with the sod washing out from too much ponding or runoff, and the grass remains viable so that it grows well during the season and remains well in place to support the field use. So a lot of these points deal with how we would go about managing that process of materials management to get the right materials on site and make sure that they're being installed well. We do, with respect to the other portions of the project, we understand that there's more than just the ball fields to it, but the same process will apply to those as well, maybe with a little less scrutiny because the surfaces are not quite as critical as on the ball fields. But there's a lot of sidewalk, there's a lot of roadway that's being developed. I mentioned previously the boardwalk system, and so on. So we need to make sure that all of those are meeting the needs and they're being installed carefully and properly, and that's why we have Jerry on the team to be on site and overseeing that work.
So keys to success. So again, the biggest thing here is communication and coordination. Obviously with the neighborhood, the communities, we kind of looked at different agencies that we would be working with within the town of Lunenburg. So our job is to coordinate with everybody on your behalf. Communicate with stakeholders, the abutters. I'm sure the neighbors want to know what's going on. The program and budget, obviously the right schedule. Like I said, we have in-house capabilities, but we also have an opportunity to bring in a minority firm if needed. Understand that they're very unique. Every job that we do is unique. We just don't look at these as cookie cutters. So it's a very interesting project. Tom walked it and came back and we talked about all the different challenges and I don't want to underscore, but it's just not fields. I mean, the topography of it, crowning it, the sidewalks, making sure the soil's compacted underneath. You don't want to install these sidewalks and I'm cracking a year later. So there's a lot to these projects. So again, it's a very unique job. And what sets us apart, this is our last slide. So again, Skanska, we have extensive experience. And just behind us, there's a lot more employees that we'll bring in through Tom. So you deal with one person, so you get all the knowledge, for everything that we're talking about. Our reputation, please check our references. I think we have outstanding references. We're local, again, we have people that live in Lunenburg, they can easily be here. We're very flexible too with our staff. They can be part-time, full-time, whatever the needs are.
And I live in Acton, so I'm a half an hour away.
Sure.
So,
Nice.
and I don't have to get through Boston or the Rotary to get here, so it's perfect.
We're talking about out there, like, 25 minutes here. All right, well, and again, we have a lot of experience. So again, that's right around 10 minutes-ish. So
That's really good, thank you.
you're welcome.
So what I hadn't mentioned, I don't know how many questions people have, but, so, because we have limited time, because we have other appointments, if we have a lot of questions, maybe we just go one at a time and then reverse, so everybody kind of have the same, or we can try to go a little more free form, and as long as we don't go one more thing, so everybody has a chance, it's up to the group.
Makes a difference.
All right,
Pick us up.
okay, so I'll ask a question. Thank you very much for presenting and love, I checked everybody's proposed staff and appreciate you being here. How often do you change the staff during projects?
How often do we change? We don't.
We don't.
We don't.
Okay,
No, we don't. I mean, the team you have here, they're available. If
Okay.
they're not available, we wouldn't be proposing them. That's the worst thing anybody could do.
Yeah.
right. just wanna
However, if he leaves, that's a different issue.
get- right.
So
But if we get this project, I won't, so there you go.
Well, no, but seriously, say if Tom decides to do something with his, something different, what we would do is come back with 2 or 3 different options for you to interview them. Be
Okay.
very transparent. I insert myself to, transparent to the group, we continue to move forward, And to be honest, it's rare, like, no one ever leaves, and, you know, I'm just being candid, so.
I appreciate
Good
that.
question, though.
Go for the easy stuff, right? Okay, that was, yeah, go ahead.
So, when you say you've looked at our project, are you aware of some of the complications that we as a community have been seeing on the field? And I'm not gonna prompt you, I'm just wondering if you have done some, you know, checking into what we're facing in terms of the development of this park.
A little bit. I mean, I went out and I walked through the whole park and walked across all of the fields just to see what their quality and condition was. You know, that was 2 days ago, so I didn't necessarily get the full scope of what was going on there. Everything seemed really wet, but I don't know if that was just because of the rain over the weekend
no, it's
or
a
if that's
water
an
field.
ongoing problem. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So one of the things that we are seeing that may be, you know, we will have to address it at some point and not sure what the outcome will be, is that there potentially is what could be called a historic structure adjacent and underneath the area that's to be developed. Have you ever run into a situation like this before where you need to help the community try to decide how to address this type of situation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Could
And we
you
do have a
explain that?
cave, just to be clear, it's truly a cave.
A cave.
A cave.
Well, that would be
A cave.
different from
That's
what I've
unique.
dealt with
No,
before.
but
Yeah.
tell us what your
Yeah.
experience is with dealing with, you know,
Okay.
historical sites.
So right now, as we speak, one of the other projects I'm working on is for the Middleborough Gas and Electric Department. They have, their electric operations building was built in 1889. And we are rehabbing that building to modern standards and to expand it to include other functions of the department. We are going to be, we actually met with the Historic Commission, presented the scope of the project that we needed to complete, and had a discussion with them about what the best way to accomplish that project was, given the fact that this is it's a listed resource in a National Register Historic District. So it is a high priority structure. And the conclusion that we came to after meeting with the Historic Commission a couple of times was that we're going to preserve the exterior walls on 3 sides of the building, gut out the rest of the structure because it's in bad shape. It's a wooden structure inside brick walls. All of that has to go away because it's falling apart. It's kind of amazing the building hasn't fallen down already. And then we'll build a whole new structure inside it. And they've been involved with us going through that decision process. And we've presented the design as it's evolved to them a couple of times so that they're aware and they're fully on board with the scope of the proposal that we're making and that we're moving forward into design with. So historic issues, and that's, you know, that's one example. Like I said, I don't know if I've ever dealt with a cave on a building.
No, we
Built
moved
inside before.
houses, we renovated historic buildings, Brimmer May, another school that we worked, private school in Chestnut Hill. We renovated, you know, everything is there, it's historic, everything seems to be historic. So a lot of it goes back to communication and coordination.
Yeah.
Bring them in early, sit down, say, this is what we're
Yeah.
thinking of doing.
Yeah.
Right out, right, day one.
No, that's good. Anybody else?
Questions is my question.
I have one.
Sure.
I come from the private world, so it's probably where this question's coming from. How do you guys deal with ledge? Because Lunenburg is built on a giant piece of ledge. And our test pits have come up ledge.
Okay,
So it's,
well,
my question is, how do you handle the blasting and the contingency for that?
Well, you can blast it, or you can hole ram it. So the hole ram is a big all day long, or you can blast it, which we do both. What we would do is, you know, sit down with, you know, this group and also the community to figure out, in your fire department, figure out what's the most. Because, you know, point of blast, you go out, I don't know what, here, like 300 yards. You have to notify everybody. But we find a lot of times just, you know, and actually we recycle that a lot. However, you also maybe bring the elevation of the field up.
yeah.
It's
goal
very,
number
very
one-
expensive. And going back to your question, I'm assuming when it rains, you have ponds all over it. That's typical for older,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that's basically the norm.
Yeah.
So maybe to bring the whole elevation up, leave the ledge where it is,
Yeah.
unless.
Goal number one would be
Unless.
to not disturb it. Where on the site is it located?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay, that narrows it down.
It's sticking out of the ground on the Mass Ave side.
Okay, I did not see it, but I didn't look at it in that much detail.
Let's put it this way, when we looked at the preliminary designs, it was, you're putting an ejector pump in, there's no way you'll ever get sewer.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
It's that bad of
Yeah,
ledge,
yeah.
so, last project I did, within 2 weeks, we went over 200 grand in ledge, and that was
Yeah.
on a private project.
Yeah, you can bring in a lot of fill for 200 grand.
Yeah.
So, you know, my goal would then be to look at the grading solutions and figure out how, well, step one is to really do a thorough exploration and understand where the ledge is in relationship to the different surfaces that we're creating in the project. And then figure out what we can do to, first of all, shove dirt around on the site to get enough clearance, because if there's ledge immediately underneath the playing field, that's no good either. Because that's going to interfere with the natural drainage that we want to have, for the most part, happening under there. Although it sounds like if it's that wet, we're probably doing a pretty extensive under drainage system anyway. But, and then, you know, how much soil do we need to bring in to supplement that and bring things up so that we don't need to do that kind of blasting. But then, you know, scope it down, minimize the amount of blasting or ledge removal that we have to do, and then figure out what the best way to do is. If it's an isolated spot, maybe we can get away with a hoe ram or some other kind of removal like that.
It breaks up pretty good. If you were talking a sewer line,
Yeah.
you could probably hammer it, but
Yeah,
when they put the park in 100 years ago, they were blasting back then.
yeah, okay.
That's what all the stone
That's all
walls
they
are.
had to.
Right.
So,
Do you have something, Karen? No, I think Anita really hit my question.
Okay, Colleen,
No, I think they answered most of my questions.
how about you, Chris?
I guess just in like a general sense, kind of like a HR kind of question, like as an OPM, can you tell us maybe a challenge that you received, what you learned from that, and how you apply that now?
Yeah, I mean,
Working as an OPM.
Yeah, I think, you know, we do a lot of public work, and we do a ton of public work, and I think the biggest thing is, you know, the budgets. It always comes down to the budget, having the right budget. So, you know, again, I don't know who did your estimates so far, but one thing that we love to do is get the drawings and do our own independent number, and sit down with you and walk through it so you understand it. And, because at the end of the day, when you go to, you know, how you're bonding this, or however you're getting the money, but I'm assuming the public has to get involved, you want to build trust with them and say, this is the budget. You got to justify it, because the last thing you want to do is you get the budget approved, put out the bid, it comes over budget. And that's not good, obviously. So I think from a, just from a you know, HR perspective, if you would, or if you will, it's really understanding the job and the right budget for the job. And then you can always add, you know, again, it's public, you can put add alternates in, so you put out the bid and you have to pick them in a row. So something like that's a strategy. And again, going back to the buildings, maybe a vocational school, you know, Tom and I are kind of brainstorming, you know, to bid this out. You may even find a large landscaping company that could be the GC versus hiring a GC. You know, hiring a contract. You may be able to go to landscaper, so all the concrete, everything rolls up under there. And there's a process, file sub-bid, you have to go through that. Here you go, Mr. Landscaper. And we didn't have enough time to actually look and see what out there, but that's another strategy.
Two things, I'll say two things. And these have been deviling me on the last several projects I've worked on. Number one is utility companies, and number two is quality of drawings. We have had to wait extended periods of times for utility companies to catch up with us and make connections, particularly electric. And I don't know if you have a municipal electric department. No,
we're
you're,
at Unitil.
okay, all right.
They're expensive when it comes to working with them. They blow grid or all those guys out of the water.
Well, that's good.
They're significantly easier to work with.
I've been working with Eversource on one project, and they've been a challenge.
I've been down that road.
Yeah, so that's one issue that we would want to, and again, getting out ahead of that is the key. As soon as we can possibly start those conversations. And I don't know if we're going to need to bring big electric into this, and I don't know what's on the site. Are you lighting the ball fields? Are there other things that would be, you know, big
Thought was
utility
prep
demands?
for lights.
Yeah,
Put the conduits in.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably not the bases, but the conduits.
right,
There's
That makes
underground power coming into the softball field right now.
yeah,
Probably would have to get upgraded, I would have to guess.
yeah, okay.
I don't know how big the service is right now.
Yeah, so that may be not a big deal, but still, just to meet with the utility companies and get that all lined up and ready to go. And that goes for the municipal utilities too, in terms of sanitary and so forth. So the second challenge is drawing quality and drawing completeness. A couple of projects that I've been working on have racked up a lot of change orders just simply because the drawings were not very complete or well coordinated between different disciplines. And so this is a much simpler project than those are. And you know, you have a civil engineer and a landscape architect. but to make sure that they are meshing together well and that we're covering all areas of the site, that they've coordinated with whoever's designing the buildings and gotten the right utility feeds in the right locations for those. All of those things can add up to a lot of money in change orders if they don't get carefully coordinated during the design phase. So that's one of the things that I would be looking for, is to do a good thorough review of the documents and make sure that we're not seeing any problems that could turn into change orders later. I don't guarantee zero, but
Yeah, don't guarantee zero.
absolutely minimize, because some of the stuff is obvious and it just didn't get done for whatever reason, so.
Can you give us an example of a community that you've worked with for, it's a small project, we're a small community. We're facing the budget constraints that everyone is now going
Sure.
into FY '25. Have you worked with a community where you had to really help the committee inform the residents in terms of what the pros and cons were with whether to move forward, whether to delay, how to prioritize,
Mhm.
phasing of a project, that type of thing?
Yeah, actually, Tom and I are working on a project now where we recommend delay into next year due to the fact it's gonna fall, it's a new building, it's gonna fall right into the winter. And there's really nothing driving, so, instead of, winter heating, concrete, snow removal, we recommend, it wasn't in our best interest, but it's in the best interest of the project to wait till spring of '25. So that's what we're doing. A year from now, they wanna break ground. It's an old building, it has to come down, and we're gonna build new. But yeah, to answer your question, we do a lot of community outreach and, explain, again, here's the budget, here's the schedule, here's pros and cons of, why decisions were made, absolutely, absolutely.
And I, my background, the first 20 years of my career was as designer on a lot of projects, not too unlike this, working for small towns through Connecticut and Massachusetts, and that's always a challenge of sort of getting everybody on board and understanding what the scope is and what the schedule is and how we maximize the returns on this or minimize the cost that we need to spend to get it built well, and what are some of the trade-offs there. Right now in the construction market, things are crazy. It's still crazy after COVID. Prices escalation has been ridiculous. Starting to get a little bit better now in some of the kinds of construction that you're looking at here. So there's not, a lot of times it's rush because the numbers are going up. Here, maybe less urgency on that front at least. So that would something that we want to be thinking about in terms of what those cost impacts would be for delay. And if that's a benefit or how much of a premium you would be paying for that kind of a delay.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. So, on your proposal that we read, this is kind of technical, it's bugging me, and I can't let it go. You had a proposed step level of management percentages. What are those percentages? Is your day, it was just like, I almost emailed you to ask, it's like, if you're gonna put up a percentage, you gotta tell me what's.
It's percent of a week.
Okay,
Well, a week, yeah. And to be honest with you, that's pretty standard, because a lot of times, like you say, all right, well, how long are Dale, Tom,
Right.
Jerry, what's your percent? So again, we just based on experience.
no, which is fine.
Yeah.
So someone who's gonna be 100% during the construction phase, that is, when you're constructing, you're going to, that person's gonna be 100% dedicated to the project.
Shows up 7 in the morning, leaves at 3:30, 4 o'clock. Whenever the contractor's on
5
site,
days a week,
they're
they're
here.
there.
They're here.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is the slide staying in City Hall Plaza?
Say again?
Is that slide staying in City Hall Plaza?
The one that shoots
That's
people
it.
out.
Yeah, the one that
across
shoots
the-
people
Yeah.
across
You heard
the
about
whole
that?
plaza? Oh, I love that video.
We
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
build it, we managed it.
Yeah.
This is all the guys.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, we didn't design it, we didn't build it, but we should have picked up on that one. Yeah. As far as I know, nobody's, I think they've been looking at some treatments to do on the slide to sort of slow the surface down. But it's a little hard to pull the whole slide out at this point in time. So, and it's much loved.
So, in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about you didn't know necessarily where we were in terms of, with the design. Just as background information, because it's been an interesting process for us as a committee, as a commission, and we purposely stopped now and we are doing this procurement for the entire project. And after we hire you, we did like the designer that we have, but that's going to be a phase that we are hoping to do it together.
Okay.
And it's going to be a procurement. They are welcome to, we have had great experience with them,
Mhm.
but what we felt that was beyond our knowledge was anything going forward, it's beyond what we can actually deliver. So completeness of drawings
Mhm.
is something that's been, we are not,
Right,
we don't have the knowledge to decide if that's,
yeah.
if that, where it
Yeah.
would be, so that's where we are.
Okay.
From here on, you would be,
All right, so you are gonna do a re-procurement on the design
Yes.
services? Okay, that's fine. That's
yeah,
fine.
to make sure that, just the concern that you
Yeah.
had one of your two projects, which was,
The only thing I would say to that, in my understanding is also that these are gonna be competition level fields that are used by the high school teams. Okay, then I think you really want as a part of that design team, and it doesn't have to be the lead designer, it could be a sub-consultant to the lead designer, a specialist in ball field design. Because they will know and understand, especially with the concerns of the water on the field and the ledge, they will understand the kind of soil approach and the layering approach and the grading approach that works best for fields in those conditions. Okay. The team that you had before, I don't know that they had that kind of a person. There's several firms locally who do that.
I think they consulted with, there was the question of
Mhm.
us changing the direction of the home base.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of public input on that, so
Yeah.
they went out and got experts
Okay.
to get back
Yeah.
to us, so
Yeah.
they delivered.
No, but that would be an important part. Now when you get, because there's just a lot of subtleties in the actual design and construction of these facilities that if you don't get them exactly right, it could be a problem down the line. I mean, for the ballpark, we actually hired a consultant from, I think he's in Omaha, but he does professional level fields all over the country. That's all he does. But you don't need that for this, unless you want to. Dan's a great guy. I'd love to work with him again. But there are several companies locally that I can give you names of that would be available to do that kind of work. And we can work that through the procurement process as well.
My last question, if the group doesn't have any other, is, I'm usually curious about operations, how, I understand everybody's title, but give me an overall how your group works and how they be working with this project. So I know, 5%, 3%, site plan, I know what a site person would do,
Yeah.
but how do you work as a team? What is the process? Just an overview, nothing in
Yeah.
detail.
Well, okay, so I am your primary contact. I will be responsible for coordinating, for having contact with you, for coordinating with the other members of Skanska and any sub-consultants that we may have in terms of identifying products that need to be developed, making sure those products get developed and then delivering them to you on time. So I'm the guy. We would add others as needed to support that, like we've identified, we want an estimator, we want a scheduler. We have Catherine available. Her primary role is to help me with the paper pushing side of things, because especially when we get into the procurements and the subcontractor procurements, there's a lot of qualification review and reference review and all that kind of stuff that has to be done, and that would be part of Catherine's responsibility. So she'd be, an occasional person that you would see from time to time, but she would be helping me in the background for most of the project. Dale would do something.
Yeah. No, my role is just support Tom, to be honest with you. On the front end, if we're fortunate enough to be selected, I'd sit down, go through the fee with you. We're very flexible. That's one thing about Skanska. We're extremely flexible. So, Tom, you could have like 1 to 2 days a week, and then, same for 3 weeks because nothing's going on. We're extremely flexible like that. And even with Jerry, our field guy, I mean, he could be here 2 hours a day if you need him, or 8 hours a day. Because you want him dirt getting pushed around.
Yeah.
You want him here where the critical stuff is going on, if there's ledge, or for hole ramming, and just, making sure, all the inspections, which is key. So
Yeah.
once before you see the finished product, you want to make sure everything was installed in the right material. Because we had a situation where we, the engineers designed the right material, dirt, just dirt. The wrong materials on the dump truck, they dumped it. Jerry said, no, that's not the right stuff. Because he has a sample and he goes, that's not it. They haul it back off. So you want to get what you paid for, right? So, but anyways, yeah, we're very flexible, and again, you know,
I would want Jerry there pretty much every day for a little bit, at least an hour or two, just to make sure everybody's on site and doing something and advancing the work. But then, other than that, it would be, identifying critical points in the construction where he really needs to be on site for more extended period of time and so forth. So, and we can make that happen.
One last question?
Yeah.
There's always change orders, and there's
Mm.
always claims.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a situation where you had to help a small community deal with a claim that just seemed exorbitant and very difficult to work through?
So first of all, Skanska has a construction group. We have 13 full-time estimators in Boston. So in my interview, a lot of times I'll text them like, hey, they're saying conduit costs X or solar costs Y. We get real-time information. Like, guys, you're full of it. Because if we can buy it, you can buy it at this price.
Yeah.
So we resolve change orders quickly. That's the
Yeah.
best thing you can do. And fair. You gotta be fair.
Yeah.
And they gotta be fair. And to be honest with you, sometimes when they see that Skanska's involved, because they know who we are, whoever the contractors are, they say, okay, we understand, I don't want to say anything negative about others, but they know we're in the industry. So again, we know what the cost is to do this. But there has been times where there's a disagreement between us and them. We say, all right, we've got to resolve this. We've never gone to court, never done that, nor I think we ever will. We just sit down as professionals and say, listen, and one of our clients, or the best phrase one of our colleagues has is we like to have that tough conversation up front to resolve it. You don't want this thing dragging on. You don't want people walking off the site. You don't want people putting in claims. You don't want people to go to whatever, Dippin' Donuts, whatever. I'm trying to find a Dunkin' Donuts. You really have Dippin' Donuts. But you don't want people to go in there and say, this job, and they're paying us. That's a complete nightmare for everybody. So, but to be honest with you, we address them right on, front on.
It's not a small community example, but we have an on-call contract with DCAM, right, the state building agency. They brought us in on a project that they were having a problem with. The contractor was filing this change order for some sort of mechanical equipment that was over $1 million, and the project manager from DCAM knew that it was nowhere near that expensive. So they hired us to come in, I think, $25,000 or something, and do a full review of it and work up a price. We came in we said this is worth $450,000. And the contractor says, no, it's worth $1 million because X, Y. Then they very patiently shot down every single one of the arguments, and they ultimately paid them whatever the estimate number we gave them was. So it wasn't fun. Nobody enjoyed it. And it was a small investment on the DCAM's part to get the result that they needed. They're very, very happy with it. So that's an example of how we work through these kinds of issues when we need to. It's all business. Here's all the numbers. This is what we're seeing. Tell me what's different and why you're justifying your cost, and 90% of the time we can't do that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys talking about budget, and we have an estimate, and it's a second estimate that we have. We got first, which was in 22, and this one just came in January. It was updated with information from the soils and more details about the project. We are following when we started this project, we looked the National Park Service outline for projects, because they have bid and build, and then they have design, bid, and build. So that's the what we are following, and that's how we are, But the budget is a big thing, and trying to avoid the unknowns, and and also interesting. This is a public project. In the end of the day, it is not our money. It is the community's decision and what they're going to spend money on it, on everything. Be the historical site, be fields, lights in the fields, whatever it is we need to make a case for the town to support. So it's not what we want or what we don't want. It's really what the community wants. So I appreciate you guys having put value on knowing the right numbers.
So it is. I mean,
I'm
the
really-
day you put out the bid, guess what?
Yeah, no, that's.
And I'll be honest, right now, you'll stand up there, or we'll stand up there on your behalf and say, here's the budget. People are like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is the budget.
Right.
And then you gotta give them options. Say, okay, maybe we don't put in the lights. You put in the conduits for the future lights. Maybe you do something.
Right.
You gotta give them different options too. And then,
Definitely.
but then again, there are people that just don't want anything to happen. Like, it's great. I mean, it is what it is right now.
So you'll come to town meeting?
Absolutely.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah. If you need us, we will be
Yeah,
there.
no, seriously, we'll go. Yeah, we go to town meetings, all city meetings, Those more.
Well, he's in
Town
Acton,
city?
so he knows what a town meeting is.
I do.
Do you guys have any question for us about
Yeah,
that?
actually, one question about the history of the site. Was there a running track there at one
Yes.
point?
Cinder
Okay.
track.
It's-
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
walk,
I was
yeah.
walking around the corner behind the baseball field. I guess that's behind if I'm remembering correctly, behind home plate. And it looked like.
Yeah, it goes all
and
the
you
way
can kind of
around.
see
Yeah.
it going back around the corner, and
And
it
if
looked
you-
like the
There's no
cinder
track
was
to
still
high
there.
school.
In the
Yeah, yeah,
outfield,
yeah.
you can see.
Yeah,
the
and it looked like
remnants
it
of
came through, which is probably not something real desirable for the outfield, but,
Right.
yeah. No, that's interesting, and I'm really intrigued by this cave.
Please
Want to
don't
see
go
that.
in it. We prefer you not to go in it. It is there. There is. If you actually go online and you Google search, you'll see.
Oh, we are.
Oh, believe me.
Well, it's not, either we call it cave, but it's not necessarily a cave, and part of it was destroyed by the
Mhm.
town at some point in the 50s or 60s, so we actually don't know.
Mhm.
People have gone in, but we can't really map out exactly layout, hot size.
Hmm.
It's really, it's an unknown at this point, and it's something that, we have, what's great is we have people in town who would like to save, and they have said, we're gonna work to save it, and they're talking about doing the work needed, just as this commission has done the work of, just so you know, we have, to date, we have raised $2.6 million in grants, and ARPA money that we convinced, more like we forced the select board to give us. So that's very impressive. So it's really great to have, we're not on this alone, there are community
Yeah.
members that are saying, we think this is valuable. But at the end of the day, they also need to either find a way to fully fund it, or they need to, convince the town,
Okay.
which boils down to that.
So does that structure behind the home plate, there's that stone
No,
structure?
no,
it's,
No, no.
This is over in left field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
it's more.
Can we not point out where it is?
Yeah,
on
it's
the-
Can we-
more in like another
Is there a
remoter
gate?
area.
Oh, okay.
You're
All right.
not gonna see it if you're walking.
Okay.
Like if you're walking out on that outfield, you're not gonna.
You never sent a drone or anything in there to the end of it?
People have gone in there recently.
Okay.
So, anyway,
So, moving on.
So let's move on.
I do have one question though,
Yeah,
so you,
please
if I
go
could,
ahead.
be honest, we always think what we know, what you're looking for.
Yeah,
What do you look for
absolutely.
an OPM? What are you looking for this job for an OPM?
So this is our first go-round in this. So I'm the longest member of this commission right now. And this is our first go-round at a project of this size. So for me, I'm not 100% sure what we're looking for, because I haven't
That's
had
fair,
to hire
that's fair.
somebody
Yeah,
before
yeah.
Yeah.
to do a project like this. I do know that, I think working with the commission and being able to navigate, our community concerns is gonna be super important. And sort of offering as much guidance as we can, and, when we look at you and say, we absolutely can't afford that, and giving the alternatives of what we could do,
Sure.
things like that.
Yep.
I'm a retired town manager, have worked for, a number of communities in central Massachusetts, following along construction projects, having hired OPMs and designers and construction firms. What I think that we need with an OPM is somebody who can work very closely with us to help understand that the concerns of the community in moving ahead with this project.
Yep.
The timing of it, the budget of it, the complexity of it. And you've already heard some of the physical concerns we have about the site in terms of the high water table, this potentially historical structure that we need to, work with.
Sure.
The local historical commission and perhaps the state with, to try to incorporate it into the project. So, really, we need you to be our eyes and ears. We do not have the expertise to know what design works and what doesn't work. You do.
Mhm.
We don't have the expertise to know what the materials are that work for this. You do. And, we need you to just kind of hold our hands as we walk through this process. We're there to help the community understand. We need you to be the professional support behind us.
Yep. Perfect.
And we can do that.
We love
There
that.
you go.
Okay.
We love that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're meeting if you want today, and hopefully it'll be a quick deliberation.
Okay.
So very good.
Thank you, it's very
Thank you
nice.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Oh,
Thank
We follow directions.
you. That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
that
job.
if
Thanks, Rick.
the public reached out to us, we will have it.
Yes, understood, no problem.
No, thank you so much.
Happy to
Thank you,
share.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
cancel
Thank you
the
very
flag?
much.
Thank you, thank you.
Take care.
Can you cancel the flag we ordered that said Enter Cave here, like
Yeah.
a big flag?
You know what? I'm gonna throw a couple skunks down in there. Anyone that wants
I'll
to.
just leave some of my business cards.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, there we go.
I so rarely get to give these out these days.
I know, I
I
was stuck at my
know,
desk
I
and I
mean-
never see people.
But now they're electronic, I don't know if you've seen those, you have business cards?
Oh, yeah, you put,
Yeah.
start your phone and you get
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just excited I get to go home and tell my husband I saw more people in person this week than he did.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, safe drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you sure tried home?
I like projects in this direction of Boston.
Yeah, it's nice, it's nice.
Take care.
Thank you.
So then let's see the other companies here.
Who is next?
Atlantic.
So you don't want a flag? You sure?
He's like,
I was gonna have a party in there this week.
Nobody knows, well, I should
As
say.
long as people know. I mean,
Some,
it's-
the kids, some of the kids know and some of them don't know, and it is.
Are you
what it
still
is.
recording?
Yeah. So,
So,
you know, I mean, it is what it is at this point.
yeah, I mean, the people
I'm
that
hoping
know
they
where it
know
is, know where it
where
is.
well, I've never been.
Please
I
don't.
know exactly know where it is.
I'm
I
happy
know
to show
roughly
you
where
where
it
it
is.
is.
After about 20 years.
I'll take you for a walk around there, but I will not hurt you.
We're around town, you have that, right?
Because I remember.
You have to know where it
when we were there, like, what they said.
So,
We'll walk with you next year.
so we have, a cable here that you can just plug and play for the presentation. This table can move in whatever direction you want to be most comfortable. We're sitting in the back, so the group can be up front.
Okay.
And I'll go around in terms of
Give me time to set up.
Okay.
And then-
Oh, no, I don't want it there either.
That's what I mean, so I had it behind me. and
Oh,
It fell.
and this is for the windows.
I know.
I-
Well, I was.
I came in,
How are you?
yeah,
We're
I,
having a weird time, we're like at 4 o'clock.
You want me, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we on live camera?
yeah, so this is a public meeting, so we
Yes.
have, as a standard, this commission does have
Yeah.
our meetings recorded, so,
No, no worries.
okay.
You were excited when the customer was coming to our presentations for us?
I get easily excited, you can't measure by that, come on. So whenever you guys are ready, I'm Anna Lockwood, I'm the current chair of the Parks Commission. We have Anita Schleifer, she's a member, Chris Sullivan, Karen Bernard, and Colleen Shapiro, also members of the commission. And this is Chris Ruth, he's the town's facilities director, and parks do fall under the facilities. So that's us,
All right. Do you want us to stand or sit or?
whatever you're comfortable.
Okay.
I don't mind sitting. I'd rather like sit down and talk to you rather
Okay.
than talking over you.
Sounds good.
That's okay with you?
That's
Yeah,
fine, thank you.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, good evening and thank you for inviting us. It's an opportunity that we look forward to. My name is Suresh Bhatia. I'm the president of Atlantic and I started the company in about 2010, so been around 14 years now. And prior to that, I was working with, OPM and general contractors, so my background, as you might have read in the, in our response, is very varied over the 40 years, so I'm bringing in Yeah, next generation in now, hopefully, is gonna be taking over, so what you see now is what you're gonna get all through the project. You're not gonna see switch and bait or somebody else. It's either me, the two of us, and Steve will be, when the field work starts. So this is where our team comes into place. And that's how we would like to work. We only look for projects which are towards the kind of work we wanna do, not just keep sending out proposals. So, having worked in this area in the past, we have a pretty good idea about the whole area here and similar projects, which we'll be talking about.
This guy didn't even use GPS to get here, I'm just saying. He knows all these things, I think. So we put together just a brief little agenda. This is just, how our presentation will flow. Nothing crazy or earth-shattering here.
So, part of the team would be myself, Jennifer would be the, on our day-to-day communications, and our, I'm included in the CC in every email, so I'm letting her take over the role and I'm the project director, and Steve will be the, on-site person here.
He'll be my sounding board sometimes.
So, just to give you an idea, we recently finished the Vincenter Community Park, which is, some of you might have gone to. If you have not, it's well worth going to during the summertime when they have the concerts. And Steve, you want to talk about it a little bit? Steve worked completely on site over there.
Yeah, I was the on-site representative for Atlantic and there for the town of Winchton. It was a very heartfelt project. Everybody that on the project was the aspiration of a few of the community members, and they made it. It's an amphitheater actually for music, and everybody was. The whole thing came together very nicely. I wish we would have had some before pictures to see what it looked like. But as you can see, you get up in the top right. There's actually seating built into the landscaping there. You can see the roof, everybody's standing on the stage of the amphitheater. And on the bottom.
I'm sure everyone can see, but I
Yeah.
think this is the amphitheater
Yeah.
here and the seating.
And the seating area, yeah.
Are you guys familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
All right, good.
So just to give you an idea, if you're familiar with it, the stone walls you see, those are not really stone walls. Those are precast made with a concrete backing. They were brought in and put together. So with a very, if you have this, the quantity, it was almost half the price that, we were able to work it out. So that's something always worth looking at, because you look at stone walls, everybody would like to have stone walls, and I would love to have stone walls, but can I afford it sometimes, and this is an innovative way of doing things. So these are some of the other projects. I worked as general contractor, like I said in the past, I worked as general contractor, the Barnstable High School, athletic field, Bellingham High School athletic fields, Falmouth High School had the tennis courts, running track, synthetic track, as well as the green fields. Freetown Lakeville had 3 different fields, built in that whole neighborhood there for the school. Lynn Classical, this is a very unique project. It was built over a existing landfill. So everything had to be coordinated ahead of the time. Can't do any digging under more than 3 feet because there's a liner underneath there, the whole project there. Medway High School again had basketball courts, tennis courts, as well as the stadium, which is a large stadium with the seating on the bottom left side there. So just to give you an idea, Reading High School had a full stadium and a synthetic turf field, but part of the whole high school, that was one of the items there. And the Leominster School, which is not too far from here. So reasons like Jennifer said, I don't need to look at GPS because I've been working in Townsend, Ashby, Groton, Lunenburg, Ashburn, Westminster, Northampton, all these areas, Fitchburg for that matter, going back to the 80s, so before the GPS day, so I just drive basically. So this is your project and
Yeah.
go ahead, Jennifer.
So, I know in the invitation, you had kind of given a little bit of an outline, and you all saw our proposal. I assume you saw something that you liked, and that's why we're here. So we didn't really want to spend a ton of time, you know, kind of going over the details of past projects. We wanted to talk about your project, and hopefully, so we're kind of hoping that this can be a little bit of a dialogue. I know you have questions. We definitely have questions. We want to sort of dive in. So we have some things here, some slides that we're hoping to sort of use as talking points to talk about thoughts that we had as we were looking through it, questions that we have, and
Sounds great.
I guess sort of give you an idea of what it would be like to work with us as your OPM, I guess, if you will.
Perfect.
For no charge.
Ask the que-
That's what's on the house.
Interpret and ask the questions, you know, don't, that's why we rather like to sit down and not stand there and give you a presentation.
Yeah, great.
So yesterday, Steve and Suresh came up here with a drone to sort of see the area in real time, in real life. So I assume all of you are already familiar with this, but you know, we wanted to sort of, you know, get our hands on it too and kind of get acclimated with the layout.
Get your boots on the ground, so that's
Yeah.
how you, unless you walk, you really don't know what you're looking
Exactly.
at, so.
Right. So as we're talking, we can just keep coming back to here if you want to, you know, point something out. Please feel free to do so. Here, these are sort of some high-level talking points, some things that we were sort of bouncing off of one another as we were talking through this. We looked through the schematic design set by Wola. Is that how they say it?
Yes.
Wola, okay. So we noticed, I mean, it looks to be a beautiful set. I mean, it's pretty well put together. We did notice that the concession stands weren't in there. So we were sort of wondering, is it the intent to do modular? Are you gonna do that separate?
The current estimate that we have is modular.
Okay. So we were actually thinking that that's a really great option for this project from a cost standpoint, from a phasing standpoint, schedule standpoint. You know, it allows you to sort of get the modular procurement going, let the fabrication take place while all of the site work starts, so that
And to add
we're all on
to
the
that,
same page there, right?
Yeah.
and to add to that, you can go do chapter 30, you know, work on the site work and put the modular as just the foundations by chapter 30 contractor, and then don't have to deal with the 149 per se, because you can bypass that 149, which has more stringent requirements, because then you're dealing with a general contractor who's having a site contractor do the work, and you're paying for his markup while he's just sitting there and twiddling his thumbs and counting the pennies, and the meter goes jingle, jingle, jingle. Every change order he marks up. And general contractors will have their bond, the subcontractor will have their bond, so the bond cost is, you're paying twice for those. So those are the things that come into play, which when you start saying how we can separate this out and make it cost effective for you, because you are the entity is the most vulnerable here, which we want to make it sure that you get the best for your dollar. How do you get to that? The end goal, we all know what the end goal is. How do we get there? There are several paths. Let's find the best path.
So just so I'm clear, in my understanding of chapter 30, chapter 149 it's very limited, other than one's more stringent than the other. You're saying that despite this being one big project, you can break up the procurement to be for one to be 149, which is just, you know, the buildings, and everything else just do it as a separate procurement as chapter 30.
Correct. So because you're phasing the project.
Well, if you were
Yeah.
gonna do stick-built, if you were gonna do a stick-built building versus a modular. So modular procurement is different than like the standard
Right.
149 stick-built. So we could do the
Yeah.
30B, which is all the horizontal stuff, all of the fields,
Okay.
The sidewalks.
infrastructure.
Right.
Can do that, and that can be going along while we're doing the modular procurement.
And the advantage with that also is, when you're doing chapter 30, and I'm sure you could pass with that facility to, do that, is you get into, let's say, you want, when you come down to the cost and say, oh, we gotta cut down costs, but we don't know, how do we do alternates? Do we do alternates or not? You can go in and say, okay, I want this much concrete sidewalk and this much, asphalt sidewalk, and then give me a unit price for everything else, because there's a base quantity, so you have both of them. As the bids come in, you have the flexibility of having moving parts. You cannot do bid shopping, but you have moving parts that you can manipulate within the bid in a legal way. It's not like, to your advantage. And sometimes the contractors are willing to do that because they know what needs to be done. You can decide what the bids are in. Right now, we got bids for $3 million and we only have 2.9, or we have only 3.1. Well, that's kind of tight. What do we do now? And I'll give you an example. Westminster had the same issue in the senior center. The bids were very tight. And I said to the OPM, I cannot tell you to go ahead with these bids, period. Okay? Because it's too tight for a contingency to go ahead with the bid, the bids as is. We can sit down with the contractor ahead of the time and agree upon items that can be, eliminated if they need be. And I had a good, contact with the contractor going back almost 30 years back, and I said, we'll sit down and have a conversation. Nothing is in writing. It's a gentleman's agreement. We'll go ahead with that. Once we have that, then the town can sign the contract, and we put all these items in abeyance as a later on. Okay? Like the modulus, if you're doing the modulus, we did the whole Westminster Senior Center with multi-tech students, all the interior finishes. So that's another option. You look at it, what all things we can do later on. So there's different options that you can moving parts that you can use within the chapter 30 and chapter 1, and the modular procurements.
So basically, it's about, knowing the procurement laws and knowing how to, obviously, like Suresh said, you can't bid shop, you can't do things like
Right.
this, but by using things like alternates and unit prices, it gives you a little bit of cost control when the bids come in, so that you don't find yourself with your hands tied and bids have come in too high, we can't move forward, we have to rebid, and now we've lost some time. You have enough information to make some cost conscious
And even to
decisions.
rebid also, you have to again redesign, make some changes to the design, because you can't bid the same documents again. So that's cost, designers want to look for it, oh, well, I get some costs here now. So you try to avoid those things by planning things in a different way, how you can do that. So that's another one. And
I'm actually gonna go outside. Excuse me, I gotta open the side door because we're in a public meeting and you have the door and the library's closing, so, but please continue the conversation.
Which one are you? Oh,
I'll do it.
Whoever that is having fun.
other thing we saw was one of the plaques at the community park with the local suppliers when you did the last walk over there. So we said, here's an opportunity, and some of your local, you have Power Sand and Gravel, Heating, they all like to contribute. I don't know, Mackie Lumber is still around?
Yep.
Well, Mackie Lumber has always was very helpful to us in different projects. And while I worked as, in Townsend and Groton, they were very helpful onto the school, to the community. So there's another way of reaching out and getting some of them. Overton Hardware, they provide all the free paid for Westminster Senior Center. So it's like reaching out, and that's how you cut costs. You want what you want. How do you manage your cost? That's the most important part. Okay, schedule and cost. When we all leave from here, when the project gets done, the only thing people will remember is, was the project on the schedule and was the project on the cost? What was the infighting going on? Nobody remembers it. When your kids grow up,
Usually there's a little bit of fighting, but no
when
one
your kids
remembers.
grow up, do you remember what happened when you were, there was some tension between husband and wife and, the children, but now everything is fine, so.
One of the other things that we were talking about is I noticed in the schematic design set, it said skate park by others, so I think You must have like a
There
community
is, there's
group.
there's a local, group, it actually started with some, students that were in seventh grade, they're now freshmen in college. And they have, fundraised for this project, so it's actually going to be a private project being done on, public property. So, yeah, so hopefully that
I'm
will.
definitely not crying.
They've worked hard on it, I can.
And that's definitely a good one for Monty to, get involved. They provide the labor, which doesn't cost you anything, you provide the material, and it's a public, it's a true partnership because the students who are from Lunenburg, they feel very part of it.
Yep.
So,
The next few slides are, we weren't sure if these phasing scenarios were still what's being considered, but.
Sure, so when we did the conceptual design and we got an estimate, and on that estimate, which was still again the conceptual design phase,
Sure.
we asked about possible phasing based on what they knew of the project and how can the project be developed, and that was the phasing at that time. But we're really gonna decide if there's phasing or not on the next phase. It was just, exploring the project, how we're
Sure.
gonna do it. We have only done up to schematic design. And we are bringing an OPM at this phase in order to help us onto the next phase, because the next phase we really need professionals.
Right.
And also we are timing funding and town meeting grants, and there's a lot of, moving parts that now is the time. To
Well,
bring
now you're talking my
professionals.
language.
There you go.
That's when you need to see the schedule and see, all of the milestones laid out.
Yeah.
What are, the different funding mechanisms, what are the different milestones and the deadlines, both for applying for grants, for encumbrance deadlines, for utilization deadlines, right? Like you guys are using ARPA funds, I think they have to be encumbered by the end of this year and
Yeah, so
spent by
this- yeah.
26 or something.
Yeah,
Is
so,
that right?
so in terms of funding, as of now, we have 2.6 million in grants and other source, which is a lot of money.
what's a lot of money?
That the town has not used any tax roll money towards that. And the goal, if everything works out, is once we go through this next phase, is for us to seek the next funding in the fall town meeting. The latest grant that we were awarded was the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that was $1 million grant, so.
Great,
Congratulations.
Yeah, so there's still, but we still have another 3 or 4 that, but it's, all of these have to be timed right, because a lot of the requirements on those grants is not like, you can use multiple grants to fund, in some of the grants, you can use multiple grants to fund the same part of the project, but you cannot have engaged anyone to build that part of the project. So everything needs to happen. So there are a lot of things that
Sure.
we're working on.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts and it's a lot of work. I mean,
Right.
even like what you've done so far, that's a lot of work. And I hope you guys are very proud. Like,
Yeah, and the fact that you have some funding that you can always say, oh, we already have the funding, you want matching funds, we have matching funds, and that puts you like way ahead of the queue.
Exactly.
When you say, we have matching funds available for us to use if you give us a grant, and that's a, a boon.
Yeah, I mean, the ARPA funding was the little seed money that kind of put us there. And before that, the other seed money that we had was the town gave us about $200,000 to do the engineering. And, that's where we tapped into the schematic. So one has led to another, and with the ARPA funds, we used for the matching funds for the park grant. So we did get $500,000 from the state for that. So we have
Great.
1.5 million, and that's going to likely be the first part of the project.
and you guys are continuing with WOLA, right?
No.
Oh.
We are not.
Or not necessarily?
Yeah,
Okay.
we felt like we had brought the project to as far as we could, knowing very little. The next phase, We feel like it needs to be, we need to make sure that the drawings are done properly.
Mhm.
Everything, you know, we have a professional set of eyes or three
Mhm.
looking at the project. So has been our, how far we wanted to bring the project. Now it's a put a stop and do this next phase.
Okay.
Great, okay.
Well, we're there, but look forward to it because we know what needs to be done. And again, it has to be a transparent way of getting things done. So, you know, we invite everybody else and Vola is more than welcome to join in and
Right.
join the party and say, okay, what can they bring to the party, you know?
Right.
Definitely.
And, yeah, and at this point, you
But
may
they've done a
want a
good job
different prime.
so far.
Oh, that's good,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, by looking at the documents for the stage you are in, they've done a fairly good job.
Yes, for sure. We definitely both agreed on that. So the next couple of slides here are
Pretty much.
the same phasing, plan, and this was more for dialogue. We didn't have any, real thoughts until we had a handle on, what your current funding is and what your current plans are. But I know one of the other things that you had asked in the email was sort of how we envision our role as your OPM. So this is sort of, this is kind of
Yeah.
stock or standard, I guess, if you will. This is what an OPM will do for you, including us. But we would, look to you guys for direction. You guys know the areas where you would want more or less support. Sometimes we work with a committee where they say, like, we have 3 CPAs on our, volunteer board, like, we don't want any financial support, or, whatever, we want more field support, less this. We are fully prepared to, provide all of these, but again, it's kind of hard to propose a scope until we know what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if it's all of it, then that's.
Yeah, I think it's really all of it, unless one wants to contradict me.
No,
Which
all
is
of it.
okay. All of it. Yeah, we really have done as much as we could. We are done.
I think there's a fatigue that sets in, and you've done so much, you brought it to this level there, you do need somebody else to take over, because the time comes when you just need to make decisions. Okay, here are your options. Given the options, okay, what would and also get the community, process going. For the community process, first of all, you've done a great job involving the community. The park itself has been there for so long, so the community is already involved into they already, bought into the project. This is a great, to start with, and you don't have any issues with like abutters because they already know what's there. So they're not getting anything else. All they're getting is more beautification, which is, good for the neighbors and for the town for that matter.
Right.
We also understand, you all have full-time jobs, and you have a full-time job even without this project.
Y'all
And-
look at me when she said that, 'cause
You look at me.
Well, we all
I'm
have-
looking at everybody.
Yeah.
That's the point of an OPM, right? You all have full-time jobs already. You have your hands full.
Main thing is really sometimes navigating the process with the community
Mhm.
more than
Right.
anything. And so, him, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
I think.
it's quality control and paying attention to the schedule and pointing things out as the project goes and try to keep the contractor in line to the best of our ability.
And Steve has a unrestricted construction supervisor's license, and he's very familiar with, means and methods and, appropriate means and methods. Is that-
Yeah.
I guess
And he's
that's.
on his town planning board, so
Yeah,
he knows the committee process.
and the committee process is fun.
But I think, we think that, like, one of the biggest sort of benefits that we bring is that, we do, Suresh and I put a lot of time and consideration into selecting only projects that, feel meaningful to us and that we think we can do a good job. So we're not kind of going after everything. We're not trying to hurt ourselves.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
want to work on things that are meaningful for Lunenburg.
That's great.
and the historic books.
Everyone. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
If
you.
if you don't choose us, feel free to call us and ask questions, and we're still there to help you.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
You know, it's not like we have to end the relationship after this tonight. You can always pick up the phone or have Julie call, and Julie, you know, knows.
Oh,
you-
we
you know,
have dreams to be building a new park every other year.
Close on the property.
Can I have paper and pen? I'm submitting my resignation.
The high school
Fresh
show.
Yeah. No, do you guys have a digital copy of your presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, I can send
Can you
it over.
email?
Yeah, do you want the PowerPoint or do you want a PDF? Either way, it's fine.
PDF is good, and
Okay.
you can just email to Julie.
Okay.
You
Sure.
must be communicating with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Take care.
It's a pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
keep you guys on schedule here.
Oh.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight.
Good luck.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
It's nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No resignation from you, we're not taking resignation.
No.
What we failed to tell you is I'm an expert in everything in my own mind, so you might want my resignation.
You know what? It's good to have different viewpoints. That's the way I look at it.
Okay,
The more
that's fair
viewpoints, the more you can have a conversation and
Very
discussion.
true.
We don't have to have an argument, we can have a conversation. Hey, Frank.
Oh, sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice
It was
to
nice
meet
to
you.
meet you.
All right.
Hi, good luck with the rest of
Thank
your
you.
day.
We'll let Chris roll with. You should take
Yeah, glad to see you're sitting down.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, David.
Yeah.
one. Love it, these guys all know each other, it's good.
They do, they totally do.
Okay, and that's how you guys.
Yeah, it's been covered. It's fine. There's no direction being given. It was covered years ago to try to keep people out of it. The question is that the concrete was tested within the last year. But the structural integrity of it has never been looked at.
Although they recently had a supposed stone mason expert go in there, and it was actually, she determined that from what she could see, the interior walls were still in excellent shape, very stable. It's only outside areas where it had been kind of decimated by the town that was in question. So she didn't give opinion as to what percentage was still stable versus what needs to be rebuilt.
Interesting, and what do they don't know, they just wanna preserve it, they don't have to use?
They would like to bring it back to original condition. I mean, from the meeting that we went to, the historical commission meeting, you know, they were very
Oh,
clear
you're
that they
waiting?
would
Okay,
like
take your
to
time then.
file with the, state historical commission to have it be recognized as an historic structure, if not the entire park. And that they,
Okay, take your time. I know
I
you were.
believe, if I remember
earlier.
correctly, that there was comment about how they'd like to have it, be part of the, town celebration, that, this would be restored and brought back to its original use and intent.
We're gonna hold our meetings there. There's no Wi-Fi, but we can hold our meetings by candlelight.
Yeah, we can research or run out of rooms.
As long as we leave the door open, right?
There is no door, so I guess it would be a
It would
problem.
be-
That's interesting.
The Boy Scouts used to camp down there.
Yeah. But I think they've done,
That's my dad and my brother.
your father has to know. He must know, yeah, he does.
We brought the surveyors over, the surveyor's like, oh yeah, I camped out in this thing as a kid.
So interesting.
No, firefighter said that.
No, the surveyor did.
Guy from those are boys from.
No, I mean-
Lunenburg?
One of the guys that came out that was there had camped in this kid who grew up in this town.
Oh, I didn't know that they had local.
Goyette, Frank Goyette, from Dillisroy, right?
I think
Mr. Goyette.
it was.
All accounted for.
I can't remember who it was.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hello.
Where would you like us?
So,
Spread out?
yeah, we
Here
kind
and
of saved the side of the desk for you. You can use This here for connecting is really just a plug and play.
Sure, sure.
And if you have a Mac, we have a plane there, and you can disable to any side you'd like.
All right, we'll take over.
There we go, I love that.
But it's,
I think I should plug in for power.
Wait
for power, maybe here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do a full survey of all the spaces.
Take a second seat in while that's your best.
Yeah.
Now we're getting better.
So new countries.
It's daylight.
I did one of the testing for we took a course in Florida.
Yeah.
And we saved it. 5 years more countries.
Everybody wait?
We're waiting. You can shut it, yep.
Sure.
Wherever.
So we have a PowerPoint presentation,
Awesome.
but we also took the liberty to make copies for everybody. So you can take notes right on the same
Perfect.
materials. We're gonna, we said 15 minutes, we're gonna try and.
Well, you have a half hour, we like to talk.
Yes. Well, are we your last for the night?
You're our last.
So, listen, you know, you have heard a lot. And, well, we try to be a presentation, interrupt with any questions. You've got stuff already accumulated, I'm sure, so let me just get to the tech.
Yeah, I'll do the back, but. So, what I've been doing is I turn off and then turn it on.
That's great.
Magically pops up, right?
I know.
I'm still logging in, so. There we go.
But there you go, see?
Works every time.
I know.
Good chart.
Listen, we're doing a presentation next week. Are you available?
I know, I can bring all my skills.
I have an idea where it is then. If the cars out, take that on.
You want to introduce us? You want me to do it? Please go ahead. I'm just going to take a second to introduce the commission. Anna's tired of talking. This is Anna Lockwood. She's the current chair of the commission. Anita Schneipers, Chris Sullivan, I'm Karen Menard, Colleen Shapiro, we're members, and then Chris Ruth is our facilities
That's way too fast.
director.
There's no quiz.
There's no quiz. There's no quiz.
You can point and say you.
Hey, you.
So we're going to introduce ourselves in a minute. Before I forget, this is our presentation you wanted a copy, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So we are NV5. We were formerly known as Jocelyn Lesser. We were European in the high school, middle school. And I think superintendent's still there, is it?
No.
No.
No? You lost Kate Burnham?
No,
Kate
Kate
Burton's
Burton's
there,
here.
but she wasn't the,
At the end.
oh, at the
here's her-
very end.
At the very end,
The very,
yeah.
very end.
I want that back to us. It's top secret.
Okay.
But I'll tell you one thing, Ms. Shapiro was on the building committee of that project.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry.
Great school. Great solution. And you know what? Ken and I are working at Middlesex Community College, and they want to do outdoor educational opportunity spaces. We're doing 2 amphitheaters based on what was done at your middle school, high school. You know the what I'm talking about, the terrace? That's an example. So let me just find my notes. Okay, so about 15 minutes. Really just short.
Yeah, I mean, you're the last one, so you have more of a free, running way. But, okay. But, a lot of times having a conversation is just as good, just more or less primers for everybody.
Right. It looks like I jumped into the middle of the show. All right. So thank you for the invitation and your consideration right off the bat. Huh? are interested in the job. Several of us have visited the site, walked it, learned it, kind of understood it. We did a deep dive into your fundraising. Wow, middle school kids raising money for a skate park is unbelievable. The 12th presentation they did to the Board of Selectmen blew me away. I had 3 kids, they blew me away. So professional, so polished, so well prepared. Touche, unbelievable. So, yeah, we've done a deep dive. We're very interested. We hope it can help. We think it can bring the tools to help steer, drive, and motivate, because you will need garnering public support, public project, and that's our skill set, right? We've been in business longer than most every other competitor, 41 years. We're one of the pioneers of the service. So we bring an extraordinary amount of experience, and you have probably the A-team here. And I just want to say, everyone's a veteran. Nobody's that new. We've all worked with one another over and over and on many different projects together. So we're very familiar. We work well as a team, and we generally go to all opportunities with kind of the same configuration: principal in charge, a program director, an on-site and project manager, and an assistant project manager. Sort of how we structure. So when you look at our team, this is us. This would be us from tonight when you engage us and select us until we finish the job and turn it over to the town. So I'll just do we'll do a quick intro for each other. I run the group, I run the practice. It's been a privilege. We're about a $3 million a year practice. We do nothing but public work, owner project management services. So it is a well-honed, well-developed expertise, and I work with some of the best people in the industry.
As Frank mentioned, I'll be the project director, really your day-to-day contact throughout the project, from all phases: design phase, procurement phase, construction phase. A little bit about my background: I do have a degree in civil engineering and spent my early career as a design engineer, but I've been doing OPM work for 15 years with this firm. So I have a long track record working with this firm on a variety of different projects, but primarily mass public sector projects. That's our focus. But really looking forward to, as Frank said, we did a lot of sort of review of information we could find, and really getting excited about this project and looking forward to working with you all.
I'm Ken Grisell. I would be the person you see on site every day, making sure that everything that's on the drawings gets done the way it's shown on the drawings. We make sure that the dollars are spent the way it's supposed to be spent, and not, messing it up with the general conditions that got in the way of a contractor's bid price. So he cut them out, and he's going to do it his own way. So I visited the site, walked it from one end to the next, and you got some challenges there. But it's very doable. I've worked on wetland sites before, built a elementary school where we had to cross wetlands in order to get to the school site. So we had to build a bridge to get there. We had to deal with the animals that use this vernal creek that ran through it. We had to replace wetlands where we displaced wetlands. This is a very heavy site condition project, and I've got the experience that you need.
Hi, my name is Maria Hernandez. I will be the assistant breed management manager. I've been doing OPM work nationally and internationally for 9 years now. I'll be doing all the document control, so I'll be coordinating and managing all of the documentation, meeting minutes, and all of that, just to keep communication very clear between you and everybody involved in the project.
And the public.
And the public, yeah, of course.
We real bragging rights. A lot of our business is repeat business. For the city of Newton, we've been engaged for 13 years. We're on our 4th school, 7th project. And they are very meticulous. They're very demanding. They're very involved, very engaged. You know what I'm saying?
Passionate.
Passionate. Perfect. Thank you.
How does it work?
And so when we do a website for a project, It's gotta have all the information, right? The city wants to be ahead of questions, concerns, comments, and scares and fears. They wanna be ahead of it, and they rely on us. Project after project after project, because they know we can satisfy that need that festers in that community. And you know what document control means, you're involved in the
Yeah, yeah.
a little bigger of a project, but still, same process.
All right, we put a slide together here just to kind of start the conversation about what we've gathered, information we've gathered from the RFP, and we've reviewed the schematic design plans which were posted on your website, which helped inform us with some of the design intent, which is helpful. Did raise some questions for us, and we don't have to answer them all tonight, but feel free to jump in if you want to share any more information. But it's stuff that we would envision sitting down with you to discuss kind of right off the bat when we get on board. So, some of the things we kind of identified are trying to better understand phasing. One, is there the ability to go out with one package and sort of realize the economies of scale and sort of that buying power? Or are there other drivers like funding, funding and sort of ability to continue using ball fields and sequencing the work that are in your mind as phasing drivers? So I think those are things we'll need to.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, so right now we have $2.6 million already dedicated to the project. That money has not come from the town yet. That money has come from ARPA and grants. We were just awarded $1 million grant from London Water Conservation Fund a couple weeks ago. We received $500,000 from Park Grant, and we have other grants pending. What we did was we did the conceptual design, then we went to town meeting and asked for about $200,000 for design work, and we told the town we're going to use that package in order to go out and get outside funding. And that's what we did. And we stopped at schematic design because that's as much as we could do. That's our abilities. This next phase is the phase that we definitely need professional help. Initially, the project was going to be $5.2 million. The construction costs, and there is also unforeseen cost based on a few different things regarding the site. The cost now is at 8.5 without any contingency. We're hoping to do a few other things, and we have some ideas. Well, I have some ideas about it, but see if we can bring down the cost. But the next phase is the phase that we're hoping to bring OPM in to help us through it. We know we will need to go to town meeting in the fall to get the matching funds for the $1 million grant. And we are hoping to be funded, it will be one package funding where we fund the entire project. However, we need to work with town manager regarding, financial, conditions where, we're not taking the entire bond on the first year. We are doing X amount in the first years, X amount in the second year, and that kind of thing. But we are hoping to hopefully get the project approved in the fall town meeting. The caveat on terms of phasing and everything else is really, I think can we bring the cost? Right now, the cost is based on schematic design. As we go to the next phase, is there other things we can look? So we're looking for professionals to help.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something, one of the other elements that I think we would be looking at right away is, has there been a cost estimate, which it sounds like there has, probably by the design team. We have our independent cost estimator, who we worked with many public projects. They have a really good understanding of market conditions and the actual public bid market. I think it would be helpful for them to do an independent cost estimate, and that does a couple things. One, it sort of validates the estimate you already have, but it gives us the opportunity to kind of look at what the cost drivers are and look for those opportunities where we might be able to save money. Is it a balanced site? Can we modify the grading so that we can reduce the earthwork? Can we, things like that might jump out when you have two estimators at the table and the rest of the team kind of reviewing what their estimate is, how they compare. So call it value engineering. And our goal there is not to sort of cheapen the project, but to reduce the cost and maintain the same level of quality and program at the end of the day.
Just want to explain a term he used, if you all are civil engineers. Balanced site means you're not bringing new materials in, you're not excavating materials away from the site. That's where the real money is. So we can use what needs to be displaced elsewhere in the land, it's a win-win. And in terms of the we've worked with PMC, they're in our proposal. I think that's but that's just their most recent parks and recreation kind of facilities cost estimates. And they're ready immediately, which we think is your very next step. So we can have two opinions of the work, where it's going, and then we reconcile those to eliminate any differences of understanding. And that will be your next template to decide what are the priorities.
Very good friend.
Are you familiar?
Yes.
You're in the business?
I'm retired town manager, having worked in numerous construction projects.
What town? I've been all over. I've been in this building the year it opened. I toured with a group of librarians and staff and their board to view this beautiful building, and we nearly replicated it in the town of Granby.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same architect,
Yeah.
Stuart Roberts.
I've worked in mostly central Mass, Lincoln, Boylston, West Boylston, Air.
Boylston's a wonderful one, where they kept the old
Yes.
gym.
I can tell you too, it's not gonna be a balanced site.
Yeah. You need drainage for all those fields, so you're most likely gonna be.
Blame on some explosives.
You want explosive, let's be honest.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
Not to be happy.
Right, unless it's pouring something out.
It's inevitable,
When the
so-
pond drains, we'll know it's the wrong way to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's another question, that we wanted to get into, how much subsurface information has been gathered. That wasn't part of the schematic package, but I'm sure there's been some
We have
soil
water.
It's a
investigation.
solid piece of ledge.
Yeah,
We
it's
have
all
ledge and
visual.
water.
Yeah.
Did you do borings?
We have test beds.
You have test beds.
So the Mass Ave side, the ledge sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
The only spot that really doesn't have it is heading towards the dog park. The ledge dies off pretty steep and the soils are decent over there.
Now, that's where the basketball courts are now.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Where the
Is it-
surface is now, I'm not sure they call them court anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
watch
sure.
where
trees coming
through the-
Yeah, watch where you
Middle
step,
of the-
definitely. Notice there was an awful lot of rock work that's been done there, a lot of small retaining walls.
All that came from
From
the site.
the site, yeah.
Back 100 years ago or
Yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Makes sense. We did, sort of outline the potential schedule, and it kind of works towards, getting things going as seasonal, sort of considerations for next spring, early spring. So that would be a potential goal, and it sounds like that might align with getting funding in fall.
Remember, we actually have 1.5 million ready to be spent.
Okay.
So, and we have a grant that does have a timeline associated with it, and that's the
Okay.
park grant.
Okay, so that may dictate trying to.
But that
do
has to be
some work forward.
spent by end of
You know,
fiscal year.
I haven't really worked with grants that much, but it is the basketball courts, pickleball courts, pavilion, and playground. That is the 1.5 million.
So this sort of phase one that we.
225,
As it's deemed in our existing plans phase.
We just
Yeah.
found that the other day. that there was a
Right.
4-phase schedule posted somewhere.
So when we did the schematic, the conceptual design, part of our question was, can this project be phased? What does phasing look like? And, to understand how to move forward. And that was a suggested phasing, so we could, look at the estimate and
There's
everything.
pluses and minuses.
It has pluses and minuses. We're not committed to anything, like, even the schematic design, as you saw, is not committed to anything. It was really just what can be conceptualized.
That, we're gonna help you.
Obviously, as you all know, permitting will be a factor. The Conservation Commission will be involved as we work with them under the buffer zone. As Ken mentioned, most of our projects are, have work within buffer zones, so we're very familiar with working with conservation commissions and very sensitive to what they're looking for.
Tim's been on some of the roughest projects, soil-wise, that anyone in the office has faced. Amesbury,
Yeah, we had elevated levels of naturally occurring arsenic, and that's one question to make sure we're not in the arsenic belt then, the soil testing there, but that creates a challenge. It's not a DEP reportable condition, but you still need to make sure you manage the soil safety.
It's not good for an elementary school
Yeah.
or playground.
Right. So,
They're incompatible.
public perception issue.
Where does arsenic happens naturally? Like what kind of pollution? I
So
mean,
it's-
totally on the topic.
Yeah, it's in the
You're
geology.
not- I'm here, I'm asking.
Might as well learn.
Because I know like old apple orchards will have a lot of arsenic,
Yes.
but you said naturally
That's not
occurring.
naturally occurring, right?
Oh,
That's
no,
the-
right.
That's washed off the.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So arsenic, just occurs naturally in the geology. There's sort of a beltway of naturally occurring
Oh, okay.
arsenic that kind of runs through Massachusetts.
We do have some of it here on the other side of Marshall Pond.
Okay.
We have the EPA site we're working on, and they picked up some background levels, but I don't think it's enough to be an issue.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that in your house?
No.
Hate to bring up a challenge to you.
It's the gas
And be the
station.
bearer of any bad news, but
Yeah.
the point was that, Tim's team overcame that
Yeah.
for a major, large elementary school project, large site, big playground, actually, we have a couple of picks. And it's just, it's where we are today, right? Everything's complicated, protected.
Yeah, that original use was a park, so that's why I was a bit surprised to everyone that the park built in the 70s and used for 40 years. And,
It's probably all covered in lead paint too. so.
Exactly.
You can't each other up.
Yes.
Maria, I don't know if you're going to talk a little bit about
So-
community outreach and.
Yes, so what we do here, that's gonna be kind of my role, just to keep all the community updated, which is very important for us, to be very transparent of what is going on and how we wanna handle the communication with the community. We also update the website if that's how you wanna do it. We create flyers, we post all the meeting minutes, why you decide you want it to be posted and when and how. We take care of all the contract documents, which are RFIs, change orders, and all of that communication in between the contractor and the town and the architect and everybody involved. Well, I already talked about distributed public information. And yeah, that's basically it. That's why we want to take care of, like, we're very touchy with the community. Like, we know, like, everybody is gonna be more involved than other person, or the neighbor that lives right next to the park, or right next where the dog park is gonna be. I've seen there are 2 beautiful dogs, they're great. So I think they're gonna enjoy it. They're gonna go there and like, okay, they're gonna be happy, or probably not, because we're gonna have more dogs. So everything is about how we are gonna approach the community with this project, and I think the town hall in the fall is gonna be, like, we're gonna help you how to communicate that to the community as well.
Just want to understand, what sort of the level of support is now, getting the funding, obviously, and then, what are sort of the hot button issues, maybe in permitting, what are the butters concerned with, and, really making sure.
Their butters are totally cool with us.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Today.
Today.
No, we'll be.
we saw the no trespassing signs.
Yeah, a lot of wishful thinking going on.
No, but one thing I want to make clear, like, this is, although we're looking for, full funding for the entire project, this is a construction project. Like, we have $1.5 million that we must spend, and we have designated area of the park that we are going to develop. So it's not just, we have a nice chunk funded.
Yeah.
And we have other monies that, so this is not just a wishful thing, it is a construction project. And whoever we hire will be immediately engaged in those.
And do you agree with this list of bullets on who might be involved, even if it's tangentially, right? You're gonna have the landscape architect who's gonna continue on. You're gonna have the civil site
No,
engineers.
so WOLA, we,
Uh-oh.
no,
No,
they're awesome.
Just
They're-
need to be rebid, that's
they're fantastic, but our piece with them has concluded.
Yeah, so
Okay, you engaged them on an RFQ based on just
the
schematic
schematics,
design.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, like, we are following the National Park Service design, bid, build.
Right.
And we are at that phase that we need to get ready for bidding. And we are not professionals, so we brought the project with the knowledge that we have as far as we could. Now we need professionals to help us do it.
Yeah, yeah, we
And
mentioned.
we have been very successful. Wallow, they designed everything, they've been great. We just need to make sure that we are creating a good package because of change orders and everything that we have no idea about it.
To your question about do we have everyone included here, there's one group, and it was actually, we've been incorporating it as a question, but I'll put it out as a statement now, we can discuss it. There is a portion of the site which the local historical commission is very interested in. It's an underground structure that was built with WPA funds, was it? And it was, originally as, we call it the cave.
A bunker.
This
It was a picnic
This
place.
is up off of Chestnut Street?
Yes.
Picnic
Yeah,
cave.
we
You probably saw it.
Big,
Okay.
big
Oh,
cave.
No,
we
you
didn't
didn't
know
see
what
it,
it
you
was.
didn't see it.
No, I think they probably did, so.
No, they might have seen
Off
the
Chestnut
old
Street?
ramp.
They walk
We
around.
saw the ramp.
Yeah,
It's not, that's
Oh,
not.
no,
it.
no, that's
not
not
it.
it.
That's
But,
not it.
And we're
anyways.
not discussing, at this meeting report, we're not discussing exact location because we don't want
For obvious
that.
reasons.
You don't wanna make it.
Okay.
But it is, it's a concern that's been raised by our local historical commission in that it's on the land that we're looking to develop for the park. And they would like to seek the site to be designated as a historic spot. How that impacts what we do with
TBD.
our, exactly. And so the question that we have been asking the other firms that have come in is, what experience do you have in working with situations like this where, it's an obvious need for us to have candid and early conversation with, those in the historical commission, et cetera. Tell us about what something similar you might have done.
Where to begin?
Yeah. We had a building in Essex. It was a historic structure on the site, and there was a lot of we're building a public safety facility there, but a lot of sentiment in town to preserve that structure. An old barn structure, supposed to be a barn structure by a prominent architect, and we went through the process. Right, there was a process to provide the notice to the historical commission. At the end of the day, there wasn't going to be support to preserve it, but they were able to work with a local shipbuilding museum to preserve the main timber structures to be reconstructed on a separate site. And that was sort of a win-win that we were able to kind of work through with the contractor, who was the GC, was willing to, they own demo, but they were willing to take it apart piece by piece, at no additional cost to the town, and it was kind of really worked out to be a positive situation in the end that could have been negative. So.
And you touched on something that I think it's important because, when you said support, it wasn't support. And I think you're talking about support from the town in order to fund preserving it.
Yes, exactly.
And so there's a group of private citizens that would like to preserve it, and we have said, in short, we said go for it. We are not against, but in the end of the day, this is a public project. It's not currently a historical site. For anything to be designated a historical site, we need to go through the select board. It's not a historical commission take. And I think that's more for them to understand that we're open to work with anyone. I don't think it'll be beneficial to them to try to create a hostile situation because we're not against it. At the end of the day, it's very simple. We need to convince town meeting to support if there is any cost associated with it. And also, I don't think the town having the work and everyone this has been a project that has been supported by just about every group in town. And that's why we have the money to hand this day. And I don't think I don't think they'll get very far with the community if their approach will be a hostile approach. What we want to make sure as a commission that we are going in with an attitude is we want to preserve more than anything. We are people. We are like the park commission. We like to party and have fun. So we wanted to make sure that the partners that we bring in have that approach to work with whoever is in the community about anything that comes up.
Yeah, very similar to a situation, one of our City of Newton projects, which just broke ground in January, had a formal groundbreaking and absolute soaking rains 2 weeks ago. A new senior center, which they call Newton Center for Active Living. And it's a grand building, it's 30,000 square feet, it's 3 stories, but it is right in one of the neighborhoods, right? So it's right up to the sidewalk, it's tight, and there's an existing building there from the teens that everyone loves. Of course, it fits in the vernacular of everything in the neighborhood. It's been there forever. Everyone remembers it. And it's just not functional. It's not adaptable. It's not usable for really anything. And yet, there are voices that say, oh, my children went to that. You know what I mean? It gets super emotional.
Right.
So we had to go through typical City of Newton public forum process. An application was made to the historical committee, and it was turned down. So everybody is, if you're not heard, you're forever unhappy. If you're heard and addressed, and you have your reasons and it's explained, we move on. And I think that's how we operate.
Definitely.
So how about the other entities? Civil site, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers.
Skate park is a separate entity. That's a separately funded
That
deal,
is
as you know. so they're-
considering non-public work.
How can that be, though?
So-
I have a long legal letter for you if you'd like. I can-
Private,
That's my
non,
burning question. I saw
It's-
so much, and I've been in,
they're a private nonprofit that raise funds to build the skate park.
but it will become the
on
ownership
donated land, the
Correct.
ownership
They
of
will
of
land.
gift
the
it-
town.
They will
Gifted
gift
to
it to
the
the town at the end.
It's because we have no say in design, construction, who's involved, that there's a 3-tiered thing for the state that you have to meet all 3 basically,
Hmm.
because we have no involvement.
Is that in chapter 30 of the Master General
I'd
Laws?
have to go back and look at it, but we have a determination from the,
Division of Labor.
yeah.
Division of Labor.
That's great.
We're,
And that
we-
construction will be
we're gonna learn
starting-
something too.
It's like
Yeah.
the project that was done in the, town of Townsend. It was their senior center.
And the town hall, right?
It's whatever the
It's a
combination
complex.
of buildings
Yes,
is up
yes.
there. That was also a project that was a private project that was done and then
And donated.
donated to the town.
Right.
Yes, Sterling.
Actually, the same architect that did your library here did that.
Oh, really?
That's,
I mean, we like to joke that they cop their library, but, I mean,
no,
not out loud.
you're the model. Okay, so the skateboard,
So
I mean,
totally
there's-
sort of a,
they'll be tangentially
for it.
involved in your project because
They'll be
you
done.
surround it.
I mean, they're, right, I mean, soon, right? I mean,
Yeah,
relatively?
yeah.
Okay.
Probably soon.
Are they gonna go
That'll be
in?
the first piece.
They're
that-
finalizing some
Do they need,
paperwork.
do you need us to help,
I,
just oversight?
no, we cannot do that.
Yeah.
We really, is really, their document is a right of entry, and once that project's done, there will be an official, and yeah, so that is really, it's, the only thing they have from us is the right of entry and the right to work in the site. That is our extent.
okay, so there'll be a to-be existing condition and we'll
The-
design
the
and
only
build a park
thing-
around it.
Exactly.
Yeah, the only thing that there is on the right of entry is, they will return the site to its current condition.
Even though knowing in a short period of time later, you're gonna tear it all up again.
Yeah, no, so if they don't deliver the project, the only obligation they have is to return the site to its current condition.
Right, right, right.
Is there a separate dog park designer? It seemed to be just notations in the,
Yeah, so that,
Schematic design.
there's an earmark for the dog park on the plans, and it's our intention of, applying for another grant, that would, cover the design piece and the construction piece of it. That, unfortunately, that grant doesn't, open until the end of the year, but at some point, it would be, I think the expectation is that there would be a dog park designer brought in.
okay.
But that would be under public funding in essence.
Yes,
so
yep, yep.
that will be
The only
subject to
part
all
of
the-
this that isn't is that skate park, and we have zero, other than like watching, we haven't had them in front of us in quite a while. We watched their presentation to the select board a few weeks ago. But we have no input on their design, we have nothing. It's a, hey, this is what we're looking at building.
They're really tricky structures. I know they mentioned the firm, and there's only a handful
Yeah.
that really specialize in it. I've witnessed several skate parks that were done really badly. Asphalt. In my town of Barnstable, they started with an asphalt surface in the hot days. You're down to 2-inch wheels,
You know,
right?
that's like probably the hottest surface I've ever been on.
So, yeah, it's a specialty. Our New York office, landscape architect design, one of the pictures in the end of the proposal, I wrote and said, remind me how you handle drainage. Because you can't have a spot of water on these things, right? And skateboarders don't bring squeegees or mops. They're not active. It has to have drainage. And he said, you can't see it. It's so well integrated into the surfaces, but it is everywhere. It's complicated, it's expensive. 30% of the whole project's drainage.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And this one won't be below grade, this one will be a bowl, that's for
No,
sure.
No goal.
No.
Is there a conservation commission in the
Yes,
town as well?
yes, yep,
Could be interacting with them.
absolutely,
Oh,
yep.
for sure.
You already have.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
But,
Well, sort of.
A little bit. They flag.
Because they did the, Dillis Mori went in front of them. There's a piece of this project that has an old, I'm gonna call it the old septic area, where Greg went in front of the conservation up in this area here. It's
So the
nothing
raised
like
level.
that. So they've been involved in.
The raised level to the.
That
one
small
side.
piece, but not for the project as a whole.
That was the original.
well, also,
Septic.
I'll add that the skate park
Used to be
has
an outhouse
gone
and stuff.
in front of them because they needed approval.
They're ahead of you.
And the wetland, there is a, what is it called?
And RAD, the
Wetland that's not part of a whole system, non-jurisdictional wetland.
isolated land.
Isolated
Flooding.
wetland, I think they call it non-jurisdictional wetland, which is going to be part of one of our discharge tubes. If you look at the schematic design from the parking lot, there's part of that's gravel that goes into a discharge basin, and then another, and then it lands in that wetland, that's the final discharge. And that's because of the soils it's ledge.
Accommodated, yeah.
Yeah, so
Infiltration
you
is critical.
really need a lot of space to put in the water, even if, and that has been, they accepted that wetland as non-jurisdictional.
Okay,
So that is a
Good for you.
benefit for us.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not that I was watching the meeting, but that's,
Isn't that where you're crossing the wetlands with the boardwalk?
no, it's,
I saw the basins, but they go out in here, so there's a.
yeah, no,
cross out
it's
here, right?
really it's a basin off of, I mean, if we had this schematic design, you would see it
Yep.
as a system.
I saw the water quality, unit that's in there, the storage under the driveways, the parking areas, so you can see that
Right.
it gets filtered here, filtered here, filtered here, so it doesn't all rush into the wetlands, create a bigger problem
Right.
later, so it's just,
The drainage is gonna be a big thing to
or
address.
you're retaining water on both parking lots as well, so.
Yeah,
Yeah. The utility trenches, there's obviously sewer and Mass Ave, right, and
yeah.
Sewer that comes down there.
sewer, water,
But nothing that connects into.
right. So those
Our
utility
water.
trenches will be challenging.
Did we see a transformer in the park?
There's currently a
Yeah.
transformer there. And the skate park is rerouting the deep to it.
So you'll be able to reuse that for everything, you think, in the
I
big
don't
scheme?
know, we haven't got to that level if
Yeah.
it's service size is big enough or not.
Does it come off of 13.8 line from the street?
I don't think it's 13.8 out there. It's not that big of a service, it's running the Snap Shack and the scoreboard right now. So as soon as we put in our stuff, it'll probably be
Yeah,
smaller
your
than
stuff
it
with
used to be.
lights.
Do all the scoreboards work?
There's only one
Relocated.
powered scoreboard right now, it does work.
Is that the softball field?
Well, the ball field is not
Powell
working.
field's not working?
Oh, I don't know, Powellfield probably is.
So
I forgot about that one.
there's one in the Little League
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah,
softball.
yeah.
I thought the notes only indicated one was through.
One gets saved
Yeah.
And that
and
one,
reused, that's when the softball field gets turned.
Yeah.
so the one that we're saving is the non-digital one, and is the one that
Oh.
is on the 9-foot diamond, and that, that's a
Yeah, because it
memorial.
has like a fake, right?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it's a memorial, so we wanna, the goal is to transfer that and to create the, you know, the necessary work if we ever if we ever will wanna put a digital scoreboard, we'll put, but we wanna keep the manual in order to honor the memorial.
Nice.
And that's how you get support from everybody.
Who's up there to change the?
My son does some days. After school, he walks, yeah, we live right.
You're building,
He's got home sort of
you're building the baseball diamond to a regional high school standards.
Correct.
Will the school department be involved in?
No.
No,
Only to ask, like, guys in the weekends.
Well, they won't be users.
Oh, they'll be
They'll
users,
use it.
but
but
they're
they're
not,
they're not part of this project.
Okay. No, I understood, but
Yes,
they'll be an
users.
interested stakeholder.
Yes.
So they use the school, the high school program uses both the 90-foot diamond off of Chestnut Street and the softball field. So
So
they are the,
that's the way to do
Yep.
yes.
Those are the only high school fields in, for baseball and softball.
And that's how you get the support from the school committee.
Right,
And
right.
that's how you get the school committee to write a letter to the select board to give you $1 million.
Excellent.
Lots of benefits.
Well, that's really the end of our show. We highlighted some of our experience, and I have a summary of what sets us apart, but I think you heard probably 2/3 of that already. A lot of our work, Tim had the experience of, in the top left there, the Thompson Island Park and Pavilion for
Yeah.
Outward Bounds.
Event pavilion out on, everybody's been out to the Harbor Islands in Boston Harbor. Thompson Island is one of the islands, Outward Bound Educational Foundation, so they're a
Yeah.
nonprofit. But we help them with a bunch of projects. They have an old campus there. And this particular pavilion in the top picture is an event pavilion, so it helps them with fundraising. They host weddings and corporate events. So we built this pavilion to be an open air pavilion. It may have some elements of the pavilion you're looking at. So we thought there was some applicability. It's also in sensitive environmental areas. It's right on the beach on Boston Harbor. So we dealt with the Boston Conservation Commission on that one. We had some others. A lot of our K-12 projects have very similar sports elements. So our middle and high schools have
Hundreds of acres of parks.
Yeah.
Fields with them.
So across the middle is Southbridge Middle High School is one example we put up there, partly because we had quite a few wetlands on that site as well, and built a boardwalk that you can see in that sort of middle to the right picture, through really between two wetlands, a vernal pool and a wetland, to one, minimize disturbance, but to also provide that connectivity for the critters to get to the vernal pool to do their thing. So that was really successful because it provided a more direct route out to the very remote football field and track, but also made the Conservation Commission happy. So. And then down at the bottom, a very recent school in the middle there is up in Amesbury. It's an elementary school, so we had a major playground component, and it's a pre-K to 2 school. So there's 2 parks, and you can see the 2 sort of blobs with the teal background, rubber surface parks, state-of-the-art playground equipment with some sort of accessible features as well for all kids to be able to use the equipment. And as I said, sort of divided, so pre-K to kindergarten, and then first and second, so age-appropriate equipment. And then all the paint, we sort of took advantage of a large emergency vehicle turnaround area that had to be paved. Instead of just having a sea of pavement, brought in an artist to sort of paint on sorts of activities and mazes and different games on that surface to kind of expand on the playground space on a somewhat constrained site. And then UMass Boston is the picture over on the left. That's the Harbor Walk, and familiar with the Harbor Walk that kind of wraps around the whole city, but UMass Boston sticks out into Boston Harbor and has about a mile-long segment that's on their campus. Built in the 70s, and it's kind of
Alone.
neglected for many years, so we helped them revitalize that with a project and actually helped them with an assortment of projects to kind of redevelop their whole pedestrian network on campus, passive recreational spaces, which were like the quad elements that they didn't have from their 70s fortress construction. And so it's really improved that campus, and if you haven't been up there recently, I would say drive through there, and you'd be surprised at how nice it is now and really takes advantage of their waterfront location.
Whole new pedestrian traffic pattern, it's amazing. It's gonna be a great school again.
Exactly.
That top right is a BMX park in Cleveland, Ohio, that we worked on for about 10 years. So, by the way, once skateboarders get their park, the next step is for the BMX. For the bikes. Just
I think the
FYI.
plan is to add bikes into the parade this evening.
Yeah, I don't know about going through the wetlands, but it's cool to go through it.
Yeah, it would be. Do you know how many skate parks there are in Massachusetts?
How many?
133.
Is that enough?
No. You guys have to travel 25 miles to get to the closest one, so.
Actually,
We have one,
Fitchburg.
we have one in Leominster now too.
Oh, wow.
There's a terrible one in Lowell, close to our project site, but it is.
Not good.
It's what you expect.
There's a new one that opened up in Leominster, in the last year.
In the town I live in now, they originally built in 2004, asphalt, raised structures. Terrible. So $1 million, 10 years and $1 million later, a rehab. Still didn't overcome, they just built equipment on top. So, 2014, I think, or 2017, another $500,000. Now it's state of the art. So
There
do it
was one in
once.
Marshall Park.
There was a, yeah.
Remember wooden structure
Wooden
and
structure one.
sort of,
Yeah.
the remnants of it, I think, still to
The
the
red.
side.
No, I
going towards
we
the
removed
curb.
it.
Is that gone?
We better,
It's dead.
that's gone. Yeah, he doesn't know it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
I think the day that I went over and found like hundreds of beer cans under there, I'm like, can we please get this out?
They built their own down where the old basketball court is. You go down there, every once in a while you go down to look in there, and things move around, the curb moves somewhere else, and there's a metal bar laying across the curb, and,
You know,
yeah,
there's
they
demand.
build their own.
So,
They are creative.
They are.
so a question that I have from reading, who, I'm assuming Tim is gonna be our
Yes.
main person.
Right.
And how often do you, like in your experience on a project of this nature, how often do you meet with the commission and give updates of that nature?
Yeah, well, we'll work with you on that, but as much as you'd like, you know, I assume you have standard sort of meeting intervals or not, maybe you don't.
I mean, we
Usually
do,
once a month.
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our meetings currently is once a month, but I don't, you know, like, I think this is our second meeting in the month, we're still having another one, like,
Yeah.
you know, we're the kind of commission that do what it takes to get a job done.
Yeah.
So it's really what's the most ideal for the project.
Right, so I think it'll vary based on probably the stage of the project, but, you know, we'll talk to you about, you know, is it full commission weekly meetings, or is it, you know, a working group that meets in between commission meetings? You know, I think those are the kind of things we'll talk about with you to figure out what's the best way to work with your group. And, you know, a lot of building committees, we often do have sort of a working group, and a lot of times it's, you know, a few people on the committee, and then maybe some other interested parties, like, if it's a school, some staff in the school, and we'll designate sort of a working group and have more frequent meetings with the working group, and then committee meetings or update meetings. But, you know, in your case, the whole committee is sort of the working group, then.
Yeah.
it may
So
be
far,
that-
yes.
Yeah.
This is it.
Right.
Subcommittee gets small.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, how large is your office in Boston?
So, all in, I don't want to scare you, we're over 200. But that's, so we're a combination of disciplines, right? So the OPM group, we're 14 people.
Okay.
And we're exclusively to public service OPM. But we reside with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection engineers, commissioning engineers, environmental engineers, process engineers. So we've got a lot of disciplines
Okay.
that we
So the
share.
OPM is about 14. Okay.
So, if I may, jump off of Anna's, this is more kind of document control. Would you guys envision everything running through you and then out that way? And are we looking at something like a Procore type thing?
Yeah.
Just because
Absolutely.
the team, I don't think any of them have used it yet, but it's the ease of use.
We would
seeing the
advocate that.
pictures and
Yeah,
that.
definitely, cloud-based document management is the way to go. Procore is certainly the one, most of the contractors like Procore, so you start early and integrate into the construction phase.
I was just thinking, even just the pictures features of it, where
Yeah.
upload it instantly and anyone can go just take a look. It's nice.
Yeah, so I assume you have some background in.
I came out of the private construction world.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody would know?
I worked for Delphi for a while and then
Oh.
Greenleaf out on
Delphi's in
Waltham.
Waltham.
They have a Cape office as well, but I left there almost 10 years ago now.
Okay.
He
I
does,
did a
he's
project
not
with
as young as his face makes him look.
They did a public project for them,
Which one?
the Holyoke Senior Center. Now, this would have been 2003, 4, 5.
Yeah, that would be before my time.
That's before he was born.
It was one of their first.
I was graduating high school, not that.
Good, that's good you have someone.
I just don't like driving in the city anymore.
You know, to your point about using a system of documentation, would we, yes, you know, we advocate that. We're also, when we get to construction, right, public construction is, well, construction is risky to begin with. Public construction is complicated risky, right? There's a whole lot of obstacles and filed subbidding processes that are, oh yeah, you probably know. So we advocate that the best way to protect your interests, if we control the narrative, if we do the meeting minutes. So there's no, oh, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. You know, we take our meeting minutes of construction meetings in an accountability fashion, right? So you're gonna do what and by when? Okay, we're gonna check on that as the week progresses. And then next week meeting, our meeting minutes from last week are the agenda for the current meeting.
We don't have the bias that the contractor might have or the designer might have, we're neutral, third party.
No, when you, on the projects that you work, do you experience that the team changes throughout the process, or is it what we see is what we get throughout the whole process?
If you wanna make a change, let me know.
Okay.
But we would not arbitrarily do anything without a discussion. You know, if Ken had an overload of work, 3 doors down from where he lives, I'd come to you and say, you might want to change out Ken because he's got such a great opportunity to pursue. You know, or if Frank gets hit by a bus, we'll figure it out. But no, one of the reasons we have such high repeat business is we keep our teams.
You take care of the client, you make sure that they feel good about what we do, keep you involved, we keep you informed. If anything's coming up, we look ahead to try and see it before it gets there, so that you're not surprised by it, and we're not surprised with a big number of changes.
So I'm going to tell you some of the magic that these guys have. They know everyone. No. Everyone knows that. Every building superintendent knows these people. They know each other. They talk every day, right? Part of Ken's responsibility, Maria, when she's on a site, is to coordinate ongoing activity. So in your case, it's sort of an isolated project, but many aren't. They're right within an operating, ongoing business or a school of education. It's got to keep running, and we have to interact with the staff. So here it might be the DPW. They'll have an involvement, or they'll want to. They'll be interested. They'll be there. They'll be doing it. Anyone from the DPW?
No, his facilities.
Okay, we're good. We separated them out a couple of years ago.
You know what I mean, though? We try to interact with all those groups. So that might be one of the other stakeholders. Because DPW, at the end of the day, they're going to own it. They're going to maintain it. They're going to be responsible.
That's me.
Oh, that's you. It's
Yeah.
facilities.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not- oh, then I'm
Yeah.
living in the
I'm gonna
past.
be the nightmare on site.
Okay. Does facilities have space over at the public garage?
We park our truck over there. That's about
That's it? And
Hey,
so,
we work very close.
groundskeeping and all the rest of that stuff for this, because I didn't see any structures on site, so you're not
We sub
storing
all of our
any.
landscaping out.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only storage on site is gonna be whatever the use is.
So there was a block
All
building
equipment and so forth.
in a ancillary parking.
That's where the old skate park-ish sort of thing was.
Okay.
But I don't know what that little
Doesn't-
shed.
It doesn't.
I didn't see anything happening on the project for that area? Is that staying?
That, it's included in the project.
No, there is some storage, there is some small storage on the project, off the
Dumpster
parking lot.
enclosures over there.
It's kind of
Behind
parking
the-
lot-ish, sort of the sidewalk to the side, and then it's gonna come up to the end of the parking lot. kind of
Yeah.
I can see that.
The turnaround.
So where the bathrooms are behind the baseball field and softball field, attached to it, there is a storage garage. And also at the end for equipment, at the end of the dugouts, there will be a storage space.
Okay.
Like a locker or a shed.
When I was
Yeah, shovels,
thinking of
rakes,
storage, I was thinking of anything that would be
But there's no
needed to
equipment, so
align the fields,
no
to
big
cut the
equipment
routes,
over there.
to, storage of fuel or anything like that that might be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, there's a small enough garage where we could expand to that.
Yeah.
You know, the school has their own mowers, so they'll bring a tractor down, sometimes drag the field, that type of thing.
Right.
But,
I did see a couple of implements for that.
Yeah.
Infield
And-
groomers.
And the other thing is where the park is located, I don't know if you noticed, most of Lunenburg town buildings are in this downtown
Yes,
area.
right,
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, so it allows us to, the school to to bring their tractor there.
Right.
The DPW is actually not that far out, so it's in that way, it's sort of efficient.
Yeah, right.
All right, does anybody have any other questions?
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
We've not been shy. Taking away as we went. The skate park was a big one. I wasn't sure how you would roll that into a chapter 149 project. And,
Yeah, that was, that project's been, so the kids that started that project, they were in 7th grade.
middle school. Yeah.
They're freshmen in college.
That's amazing.
Right now, so
They're
they've
impressive.
spent a lot of time, they've had some parental involvement in trying to, get them organized, offer some guidance, but they've done a tremendous amount of legwork, so when the project started to move along and into fruition, we had talked to town legal council, and then we went to the Department of Labor.
All
They
these
ended
adults
last
over
year.
there shredding it up.
They might be, you never know, so,
Well,
We might need another ambulance.
we might.
don't say that, they're about 2 years old.
what blew my mind too was the survey. I mean, it was only 400 responded, but still. This was their March 12th, and they said more than 100 people said they would use it weekly. That's impressive. But then he said, and the big thing, it's going to be in the Summer Olympics this year.
It is, yeah.
These guys are organized. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, they did a nice job. But I can tell you they're ready for it to come to fruition.
Sure.
They're ready to be done, so,
Ready to skate.
ready to skate.
All right, so here's our last question, I guess. What's your timing for selection of girls?
It might happen at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
Our plan was we technically have to schedule a couple other meetings, but we will be missing a couple, so our plan was to touch base after the meeting to see how we feel, if we want to deliberate today. And what will happen is we are going to send a ranked list to town manager, and she will be doing the negotiations, because there is also laws regarding that, and that's outside our,
That's Heather.
that's
Yeah.
Heather and you,
Yeah.
yeah. And, but it'll definitely be over the next week or so.
Terrific. Great. Well, we're anxious. We'd love to do that. We'd love to work on
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
it. I did one national park project. It's the hardest thing on earth. The National Park Service. In Holyoke, I did the initial transition of their public library was privately owned in the city of Holyoke. So the trustees sold the building and the land from their ownership to the city for $1, and they wanted to, the city was going to expand, but they are the only non-park use on a city block in downtown. That city park, national park, city park received a national park grant of $40,000 in 1968 with a covenant that said no other use will ever be made of the park. You signed in 1960 together. They just wanted to expand, a little footprint and some parking. No. They did say yes. Took a year of back and forth by trading off property across the street and making an associated parking lot, if you will, so it would work, but
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the legwork on the grants that we've done, and when you start diving into them and really like reading all, like, in other words, fine print of it all, it's interesting to see what they have on there, and I did think to myself recently, I'm like, I wonder what they'll think 100 years from now, and are they gonna sit there and say, in 2024,
They
that
will.
parking issue got a grant? So it'll be interesting to see.
And we want the money back.
Well,
They did
what's
maintain that.
interesting about that, that comment is, even though all these grants have restrictions about future use, when this property was bought with town money, there is a deed restriction that this land must be
always
parked.
be a park.
So there's actually, we're actually annoyed at the first grant. We're like, what do you mean we have to do this? Because this cannot be anything but, so, in a way, I feel the Lunenburg residents 100 years ago knew what they were doing.
In my hometown, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Baseball park was built in 1913. It's very much like Fenway, and I mean very much old, tight, twisted. And the land was donated by the Forbes Foundation, Forbes family, with a covenant that no alcohol would ever be served in the ballpark.
Oh, it was
How's that going for 'em?
Yeah.
They tore it down in 1969 and built a stadium. Yep, those are out. They will read those covenants. They go on forever.
Well, thank you very
Thank you.
much
All right,
so
very
much.
much.
so much, appreciate it.
If you want us to just wait outside, we'll decide.
Ready to sign?
Who owns the Chevy that's parked in
Yeah,
the woods?
Say it again?
You saw it.
Oh, you did see
Of
it.
course.
So I'm surprised that I'm surprised
High
you
school
didn't see our
kid
other
threw it out
traffic.
there or something like
Yeah.
that.
Still got the chains on it.
There's a story to it. I don't quite remember what it is. The story was told during one of our meetings. We'll have to go back and look and see if it was captured in our minutes. But at one point, we had a commissioner who wanted it memorialized, basically as part of a museum, is what it sounded like.
There's no floorboard left.
There's nothing.
You said a throne.
Honor and I were out there a couple of months ago, and I think I said, "Should I sit inside?" He's like, "No." I think I did shut the door.
You don't know what you'll catch.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Give a recent tetanus shot, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right, thank you
Our
all.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Make us look good, will you?
Oh, yeah, right.
Turn it off.
Well, just-
Side note, the alarm on this one's turned
Well, it's always on, right?
We're safe to
No?
go?
on. Yeah, you're good.
Yep, you're good. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Good night.
It's not always on?
No, you turn it on and off and keep it.
Oh, okay.
It's a local alarm on that one.
Do you guys want to have a conversation about it now? Because over the next 2 weeks, we have 2 members who will not be here. This is the only time. And I wouldn't mind. I'm not hungry. It's usually very important to me.
I haven't had to
So just so you know. So you might prompt us to be,
But I'm fine.
do we want to have deliberate on this now? Do
A
we,
little peckish, we can go choosing.
yeah.
That's not Steve's Karen.
So, do we want to deliberate on it now? And see if we have,
Leave
a
it
rank
for
list?
everyone to deliver. What do you want?
How do you want to do it?
Well, how about we pick our, so the first question is, do you have a top choice off the bat? And,
I have a bottom choice off the bat.
well, that's not the question.
So, I guess what I'm saying is have at least taken 3 down to 2,
Right.
at least.
But like, to be do you have a top choice? Like, anyone has a top choice? It doesn't seem like it.
I found that now I have 2 almost equal contenders
Yeah.
that I didn't before.
Okay. All right, so how about we go to the bottom? Do we have one that we're eliminating? And which one would be, actually, we are not eliminating. This will be a ranked list.
Yes.
So it will be, so how about we say who's our Karen just said, I actually,
Atlantic.
Atlantic's here in their bottom, okay?
I will say they did have some interesting thoughts of how
They
to
had-
save some
they
money.
Had some
Yeah.
very interesting
Yeah.
thoughts.
Great
It was an
thoughts.
interesting conversation, a very
Yeah.
interesting conversation, but I
I,
have them,
I,
Size-wise.
yeah,
concerns.
I wasn't as concerned about sidewise. I was more concerned with, I think that community engagement is going to be super important in this.
Mhm.
And.
That's sort of the size-wise, I think there's not enough.
Yeah, and it just, there was a lot of questions still left in my head at the end of it,
Okay.
so.
Is
I
Atlantic?
agree, Atlantic is my bottom choice.
Is Chris Atlantic?
That's right.
Oh, Colleen, and aside from that, would you say that they are your,
I would say so, yeah.
okay, so, all right, so we have number 3, all right. That's good.
Anyone bring a coin?
No.
So, all right,
Yeah.
So how about we say what we like about each,
exactly.
and then we go around, you start, you seem to be ready for it.
So it's hard, right, because Skanska didn't have their site manager here. They only had 2 of their folks here. I did like that MD5, their site manager was, throwing stuff out there, without necessarily having to be prompted. I did like that. I tossed up either
I
direction.
really liked that they had, that Maria was here and talked so much about community outreach. And I do know, on the school building project, they were really good. Like, we needed a lot of buy-in and,
At what point did they come in the project? With,
It was before we had the designer.
I think the law had changed at that point, that you had to have the UVM
I think
on
we had
board
to start
before
with
you-
them and they had to
Yes.
do everything else. So like we worked with them for a long time.
before the
and they
full
held-
funding?
Yeah, and
Okay.
they held like forums and put together all kinds of, we didn't, I don't really think we had a website so much at that point, but like a lot of documentation and a
did.
lot of things.
That site's still up.
Oh,
It's a
is
Google
it?
site,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, okay. But, there was a lot of like hard copies and a lot of meetings and a lot of talking to people, because it was not an easy sell. And, I just liked that she was here and that she was talking about the community engagement. That's not to say that Skanska wouldn't do a good job of it. I just liked that she was here.
Yeah. Okay.
I would be comfortable with either firm. They each have pros and cons.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Chris?
I liked it I like that NV5 made it clear that they have a dedicated OPM group of 14 people. Like, I like that they made that designation of separation a little bit more, maybe Skanska did, but I think either is, I'm comfortable with, with either, but I lean towards NV5 as well,
Okay.
because of that designation.
To your point from last week about sitting in the room with them, I liked them both. I feel like they both know what they're doing. They'll help us get it done. I feel a little bit more like I liked the personal with NV5, but maybe it's because they sat down and Skanska was first and they were saying, they
Yeah,
were
the precedent kind
personal.
of changes things,
They
as the
were
night went on, the
Right,
precedent
so
sort of
I
changed.
don't know, but just,
Yeah.
you mentioned that last week, that
Yeah.
you sort of get the vibe, but I think they're both.
Skanska has a
good.
local tie, they're
Right, they
local.
do have a local tie.
How about you, Karen?
Staring at a book. They're tied in my mind. I don't think we can go wrong with either one of them. I think there's the piece that was mentioned tonight of, whether it was strategically said by them or whether it was just because there obviously is truth to it, and that's Tim's worked with some, pretty difficult site challenges. And I think our property is going to have some site challenges to it. So I liked that piece of it. You're right, it changed, the way the night progressed and how people were presenting. you know, I liked the stand-up approach. I think what we saw from Skanska, that sort of personality is a great town meeting personality. And that's, you know, so part of me looked at that too and says, you know, we are gonna have to have some, you know, there's a piece of this because we're looking at such a large project. I did like that they both brought up that they had, you know, estimators. I liked that Skanska said off the bat that they were gonna have their estimators look at it, the numbers again. You know, so I like that they offered that almost, you know, pretty quickly in this conversation tonight. But I don't think we can go wrong with either one.
Do you have one that Chris leaned a little more?
I don't know, I think I might be leaning a little more to Skanska, but I'm not sure it's an overly too far of a lean.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
I think both, we can't go wrong, I don't think.
Well, now you're copycatting.
Well,
Karen.
I mean, I'll say, Skanska's
Be
got
original.
Skanska's got the horsepower. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. There's no screwing around, they know what they're doing. NV5 seems just as qualified.
So who do you lean towards?
I mean, I know there's some issues with the middle high school, but I don't know how they came to be.
Well, can you elaborate and go?
Well, there's
Well-
the wall by the track that's falling down that,
That wasn't part of that project, that
Okay.
was there before.
Okay,
That
so
was
that wasn't-
volunteer built, not to
That's a
any
story
sort
for
of
another
public.
day, I'll give you
The
that.
front- the
Yeah.
front field's
I
part
look
of
at
it,
that and I'm like, if someone let
Yeah.
that go,
Oh,
that
So
was,
that had nothing, that was done before
That was a
that
private
even
project that
happened.
ended up getting publicly funded, and then it was actually owned by the Parks Commission, so you're welcome. And now it's owned by the school.
So what else?
I mean, there's a couple of little things, but
No, just be
Like-
specific.
the,
the field's
well,
here, the field's here.
some of it I don't wanna put out
Yeah.
publicly,
Okay.
bashing people. There are some issues, I don't know all the history, but if they weren't involved in all of them and didn't get the history, you can't hold them against them. That being said, I like them a lot. I think they have a great approach, and truth be told, I'd be a coin toss between them.
Yeah, I agree.
If I went back to NV5 for a second though, I think the one thing that gave me pause was the state park comments. And I guess I'm just it could just be lack of knowledge, you know, in knowing how a project like that can go forward, you know, as a non-public project.
It's
I
very
don't know.
unusual to have that happen, so
Yeah.
I'm not surprised they didn't
Okay.
have experience.
So,
I did have one more thing that
Go ahead,
Skanska
sorry.
said that jumped out at me, is the drawing completeness,
right.
which that is the biggest thing, because public construction, the game is look for the holes.
And change orders.
Yep, and we go in with the cheapest number you can, knowing that we're obligated to give them the change orders. So, the only way to avoid that is to have a very complete drawing. So I like that they said that, and it may just not have gotten said, you know, all these conversations, things get missed and whatever you wanna talk about.
Right, right.
So it's not to say that they
They
wouldn't.
did focus on that, though, they
That-
really had, like, that was important to them,
So,
which should be important to us.
Yeah,
you know, one thing I like about Skanska was the project leader, which was the tall gentleman standing, he's a landscape architect.
Yeah.
And he focused so much on the soil, like things that, you know, that he spoke about the project, like what he said applied very, very much to Marshall. And I mean, I'm going to say it, like, we do have a drainage problem with the two fields up front.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And you know, their OPM is not necessarily an engineer, but when you have someone here telling you, you know, that is something that you have to think about very, like, that is a must on a playing field. You pause it and you go, no, you got it, because we have a problem right here. So to me, it spoke like they knew about the project. I felt like the people from Skanska that were here, they were not salespeople. They're a larger office, and the people that are here are going to do a project. And this is public meeting, but it's how I felt. The NV5 is a good team, but the head of the person presenting during the most presentation was a salesperson.
For sure.
He is the head of the 14 people of the OPM. And I like the Skanska that, despite being a power horse, this was the group that are responsible for it. And completeness of the drawing, that's something you have hammered in my mind quite a bit. I also like how Skanska talked about, where are you with the designer, and, we were able to tell them, this is where we are, and like they knew it exactly where we were jumping. I didn't feel like I was being sold. They were not selling to me, and I did feel like NV5 had a sales approach on talking with us, and it may not have much practicality, but I know the fields here flood. Like that's how I do that. I'm making that connection between the two.
Was this part of, this was part of?
That was,
Right.
yeah. And by the way, this was a raised field, because this was
Oh,
where
it used to be, yeah.
it used to be. That's where we used to have the the bonfire. Like
Right.
how can you raise
Yeah.
that much, that,
Drainage issues?
and have still that drainage
Because it was
too.
what did they say? They said there was like a pond there or something. They made a comment at the meeting the other night about what's here, why there's cattails in the corner of that.
Yeah, the cattails aren't ever a good sign.
But
And there is quite a bit to that soil science of how you do that. I mean, raising a site's a big deal, and
Yeah.
there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
I imagine they all understand it, but it's also which engineer you get, and the team that we had engineering so far. I despise most engineers, but they're pretty good.
Skanska was the most.
oh, you gotta open because it's loud.
And to that point about how NV5.
It's a public meeting after all.
If they're thinking that we're gonna take soils from one part to use it to raise a field,
There-
they
that makes sense.
totally
Are you guys all
understand
set?
the concerns that
You
we
got-
have with this.
Join us.
field.
If you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were the most technical presentation, anybody, like from a.
Skanska?
Skanska,
Yeah.
the most technical presentation. in terms of
And I
what
do
they
feel like that's the point we're at right now, in that it's,
So can I ask something too? Can we turn more or less towards the camera, like talk a little bit like I'm doing, not just for the sake of our viewers? I know, we can do it sideways, but let's make eye contact with people that might be watching this meeting later on.
and now I have no idea, oh, so
I'm sorry.
I feel like we're at a point in this project where, professionalism is going to matter. I mean, they were all professional, but I think that the feeling that I got from them, again, it, comes back to my comments, a little bit ago that, I could see them at town meeting if we need them at town meeting, and making.
Well, they get it.
And they get it, right, and that's the feeling that I got from them, and I'm feeling like that's, this project is, I don't think it needs to be sold, let's be clear on that, I don't think we need to sell it to the community in the way that we're looking, but we do need to have the support for the funding of the project, and pros, cons, giving, feedback, getting alternates, if something comes back and it was grossly miscalculated in the estimate, to have them, be able to, work with us to come up with that. I feel like that's just what I left feeling on this, more on the Skanska side than I did on the NV5 side.
So Skanska was my first, like, when we did just the initial rankings, Skanska was
It's my first as well.
that was my top.
On the
Across-
rating,
when
on the
we-
original
before,
rating.
before our last meeting, they were my
Right.
top, just reading their presentation,
Right.
that was my.
I
I did appreciate that NV5 did talk about meeting minutes though, and how they organized their meeting minutes.
But they all did that.
Is that, I appreciate them saying it, that's,
Most
it was an
everyone
interesting kind of,
most
to
everyone
hear them
uses
say it,
Procore,
like,
so
this
it's
is how
like,
we're gonna do it.
That's all standard
Yeah,
stuff.
it's standard operating, and they are right about if the GC is doing the minutes, they're skewed one way, if the architect's doing it, it's another.
Sure.
And it's the same thing, even when there's no PM, everyone, same thing. But it's pretty industry standard. I
Okay.
mean, some of the stuff they can say is the most basic stuff in the world, it sounds fancy, and it's really not.
Yeah, okay, that's
So-
great, yeah.
So I think, after talking out loud, I think I skew towards Skanska first. And the way generally my head is number one takes higher numbers, so I mean, we're six, so we technically could. I mean, technically, Chris doesn't get a vote,
I
but
don't
it's a
count.
question. But it's a question of
We have a
opinion.
valuable opinion though.
But
okay.
his opinion,
Yeah.
it's really, we just want to get to the best. So is this something we want to make a decision? I mean,
I'm gonna throw it out here, I'm gonna say I move that we have Skanska be rated number 1, NB52, and Atlantic B3, with knowing that we have a comfort level with both 1 and 2, and that if for some reason we're not able to negotiate the proper price that we can afford with Skanska, we have an excellent fallback firm to work with.
I second that.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
How many of us, Andrea, you're taking the minutes, I want the second. And now I'm talking to our minutes taker who's at home listening to this, so.
Okay, I'll second that, okay, and all those in favors? Aye. And I think that's all we have for the agenda.
Sorry, it was more exciting.
Actually, you were like, this is a big decision.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
At
9:46.
9:46.
All right, and thank you very much.